Councillor James Daniels to give the karakia timatanga.
Kia ora tātou. Sorry, I'm a bit breathless. I've just been on a training ride on my bike. No, katoa hou. Look, to open the meeting, which will be my final one actually as a councillor, I'm going to do a karakia. I don't believe in deities, as you all know, but I do believe in energy. Energy is part of the universe, and so what I'm asking is for us all to think about drawing on all the energy around us and use it for good for today, and we'll get underway. So I say that i te reo Māori by saying tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū te mauri ora ki te katoa, hau mea hui e taiki. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you. I just want to make a statement to the council. Nola Allen Massey passed away peacefully on Saturday, June 26, 2021 at Mayfair Life Care. Nola was a Christchurch City Councillor representing the Pegasus Ward for 5 terms from 1977 to 1992. Former councillor colleague David Close recalls working as a team with Nola and Vicky Buck, sharing ideas and responsibilities and discussing the best way to solve problems or deal with difficult situations. He recalls that Nola was not a frequent participant in council debates, but when she intervened, she spoke with a passion based on her awareness of the impact on people of the matter under discussion. That awareness was one of Nola's strengths as a councillor. Her close involvement with numerous community groups, especially women's groups, made her a genuine and effective advocate for the people she represented. Nola had a keen interest in sport, especially cricket and rugby league, and was a capable chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee. However, what former colleagues and staff remember most about Nola was her smile and her unfailingly pleasant manner to all her colleagues and to all staff with whom she came in contact. I had the pleasure of having Nola as a constituent when I was MP for Christchurch East. Our thoughts are with her family and friends as we acknowledge her service and passion for the city. I'd invite you all to stand for a minute's silence. Thank you very much. So, apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Templeton for lateness, and we have Councillor Goff zooming in from home. So
I just had apologies for just temporary absence.
And
from 11:30.
Yanni for temporary absence. Is there anyone else in that position?
Yes, I'm temporary absence, Leanne, hence the Zoom.
Oh, good, right. Okay, and would someone like to move that? Jimmy Chen, seconded by James Daniels. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. I have no recorded declarations of interest prior to the meeting. If anything comes up for people, then do let the meeting know. Now, I was going to be in a position to announce that our public participation would be at the end of the open meeting with the arrival of the Remuneration Authority Chair, the Honourable Dame Fran Wild. Her plane has been cancelled just now. We've just had advice that her plane has been cancelled, but we are making arrangements for her to zoom into the meeting in order for her to give a summary of the issues around determining local government elected members' remuneration and some of the decisions that we'll be required to make as well. So I will put that matter on hold. So at some stage during the course of the meeting, but it does mean that I was going to restructure the meeting around her availability just prior to the lunch adjournment. And so as a result, if we can get her to come in sort of either immediately before or immediately after the morning tea break, then I'll do that. So we'll just work with her office and see where an appropriate time would be. But that, that's disappointing. So we'll just move on to presentation of petitions, and I'll invite Andre Moore to present a petition on a matter that is before the council today, 66 Quaifs Road. Thank you, Andre.
Good morning, councillors. I'm presenting you a petition today asking that you retain 1/3 of the land at 66 Quaifs Road for future community use. I bring with me a support for my petition from the Hallsville Community Project, the Hallsville Community Hall, the Hallsville Resident Association, Hallsville United Football Club, along with over 340 people who have gone ahead and signed it. One of the comments on the petition said Hallsville is the fastest growing suburb and we'll need more facilities in future so our community is not relying on other suburbs to meet our needs. As you know, Hallsville is growing extremely fast. Out of the 2,700 new homes consented by council in the last year, nearly 400 of those were in Hallsville. This level of growth in the area is expected to be seen every year for the foreseeable future. I accept it, I embrace it, and I welcome it. But what we're asking for is the growth is catered for and planned for. I've searched far and wide and have barely come across anyone at all who doesn't believe that retaining 1/3 of this land for community use is a bad idea. Selling 2/3 still allows for housing development, and I'm very pleased to see that the board's actions and recommendations may well result in some affordable housing being built for first home buyers. That would be an excellent outcome. I'd like to draw your attention to some points in the report which you'll be basing your decision off today. Mentions that Kaingaora have expressed an interest in acquiring the whole site. It took me several weeks to get an answer to this, but Kaingaora would also be interested in 2/3 of the land. So really important that's noted there as well. It says that this property could be retained by council, but there is no identified use for it. Reality is there hasn't been any work go into identifying a use for the land or what it could be used for in future. So naturally there's going to be no identified use if you haven't identified what future use may look like. The report mentions the draft Community Facilities Network Plan, and the emphasis here on the word draft. What the plan originally said was there are no significant geographical gaps in the network. What the community facilities map showed in that was exactly that. What it showed was a great gaping gap right in this part of Hallsville we're talking about. The board submitted on that at the time, and sure enough, the Community Resilience Committee decided to adopt the plan subject to changes. One of those changes was removing that exact wording and replacing the part about no current geographical gaps. I have the information here if you'd like to see it. I've got the receipts, but really important that the report should mention that as well, that wording was once upon a time in there, it was removed because there are geographical gaps. The report states there is currently no infrastructure to service a potential site as the land and that surrounding it is undeveloped. The entire point here that the land around it is being developed, and selling 2/3 for development would see, sure enough, development. So there is development taking place. So problem solved in that regard. It mentions that we've already retained the old Hallsville Library site, which was previously identified for sale, and that's kind of exactly the point here I'm making. Sure enough, it turned out that retaining that site for community use was a good decision. The Hallsville Community Hub is thriving, it's extremely busy, there's amazing people doing amazing work in our community there now. That decision to retain that land was on the right side of history. A few years back, the council attempted to sell off land at Hallsville Domain and Hallsville Quarry. Some residents and the board at the time opposed and fought against that. As it turns out, retaining land at the Hallsville Domain and Quarry also turned out to be on the right side of history. They knew that the area would continue to grow. Councillors, you've got an opportunity today to be on the right side of history once again on this issue. In an area growing as fast as ours, it's highly unlikely that there will be no identified uses for this land in future. In my petition wording, I've specifically committed to eating my Sunday hat if there's not. The final part I draw your attention to is the line that reads, there is consequently no reason for the council to retain any part of the sale of land. I believe I'm holding a reason right here in front of you, and it's a petition from over 340 residents. I believe that's a pretty good reason. It's what the community wants, it's what the community will need in future, and it's what the community is asking you for today. We're looking to build not just homes, but we are looking to build a community in the area that we love and cherish. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would someone like to move the recommendation that we receive the petition and thank Andre for presenting the petition? Pauline, seconded by Anne. Sorry, I should have taken that from you.
It's a clarification.
Is that, sorry, questions? Do we, petitions?
Standing orders are silent, so it's up to.
Okay,
up to
yeah,
your
yeah,
discretion.
okay.
It may even be for Joe. It's just we may need to correct the record because Andre said there were 340 signatures and yet there's only 148 on there.
We will update the minutes to reflect.
The minutes will be updated to reflect the true number.
Right.
148 when it was submitted.
Oh, right. Okay, so there is. Okay.
So there have been further signatures collected since it was submitted
Right.
in time to be on this agenda.
Right. Right.
Yeah. That's, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Thanks,
you all.
Andre. Right. Now we have the minutes. Would someone like to move that we confirm the minutes? Along here, Jimmy Chen, seconded by Tim Scandrett. I'll put that. Oh, Yanni, you had a question?
Just a question. The fees and charges, when I looked through, I couldn't find the resolution with fees and charges for the LTP. Was there a specific resolution?
I'm sorry, at this time I don't know. Perhaps what we might do is just remove the confirmation of the long-term plan minutes.
Yeah.
And if the council is able to, I'll follow up with him and we'll put them on the agenda for confirmation at the next council.
Next
Well, I think you
meeting
could do
or
it later.
on the agenda.
You could just do it later today.
If we can get the answer by the, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so this is just the council minutes rather than the long-term plan minutes. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That's carried. And now we come to the a different format for community board monthly reports. So instead of receiving each of the individual reports from community boards, we receive in block the monthly report from all of the community boards. So I'll move that. Do I have a seconder for it? Mike Davidson. And now I'll leave that open as I invite each of the chairs to come forward and speak to their report and make a presentation should they so wish. So, Waipapa Papanui Innis Community Board Area Report. We've got Emma Norrish and Simon Britton. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, thank you for having us along today. We're going to take the report as read and we're just going to highlight a few things that have been happening in our area. Let's get the PowerPoint up there. Cool. That first picture there is of the CNC shared pathway that runs alongside the new motorway. It's a really great thing that's actually come from that motorway and it's getting a lot of use, especially by recreational riders. Using it to get all the way out to Kaiapoi and coming back again. One thing we had a resident alert us to was the fact that there are no toilets along the whole path, which is it's decent length, about it's a decent ride if you're going for a recreational ride, and so we've asked staff to put signs in pointing to existing toilets just off the route. So it's good to see that those have gone up, and people can now relieve themselves as they use the path. Go along the next one. We've got council last week or week before, I think it was, highlighted some volunteers that are doing some great work in our city, and these couple of ladies here from Papanui were one of those people highlighted, and we're just going to show a wee video showing what they do every week in Papanui with the walking group there.
Give this our
Hopefully it's
best
gonna
shot.
work.
We might be in luck.
You get to meet new people, you get to know the area. We've made quite a lot of friendships over the years. We get to go, but there's sort of a core there that's been coming for quite a while, so we get to know each other quite well. It's pretty straightforward as Bolliges. We just turn up, don't we?
We've got a good leader.
Yes. She organises the walk, where we're going. We just do a tail end and one of us is in the middle.
And if someone's not feeling 100% and they get a bit slower, and if they want to go back, one of us will escort them back so that we know they get back safely. I enjoy the comradeship, to be honest, and the social side, and we don't always get a chance while we're walking to talk to many people, but when we have a hot drink afterwards, it's like a school trip. It's all chatter, chatter, chatter.
That's the Papanui Walk and Talk group. They go every Wednesday morning from outside the Papanui Library and do a loop around the area, and they get huge numbers. I think it's usually about maybe 30 people along, and it's really great to see.
On the 18th of June, we had our latest meeting with school principals in our ward, and we overlapped it intentionally with a meeting with our local MPs. So we had Sarah Pallett, Duncan Webb, Matt Ducey, Poto Williams was an apology, but yeah, on a regular basis we seek to meet with our school principals and also with our local MPs to discuss interests where we have overlapping interests. This time we intentionally brought those two together because we often find we're talking to our school principals about system issues that are beyond our domain and the domain of the council. So we used it as an opportunity to allow them to speak directly to a group of elected members at a government level, and had facilitated some good discussions there across those two groups.
Planting season is well underway, and we every year at the beginning of June for the last, I think it's 4 years, we've had an annual planting day at Papanui Bush, but unfortunately this year we had to cancel it due to the weather, but there still has been other plantings going on in our area. There's a lot going on in the Cranford Basin, where there are going to be this year 40,000 kahikatea planted in the basin. That's being done by it's funded by MPI, organised by Conservation Volunteers New Zealand. The trees are grown by Trees for Canterbury and it's supported by council. And so far, 14,000 of those planned 40,000 have been planted. It's been a mixture of community planting days, corporate groups and other groups. This day I went along to last month was a group of kids from Papanui Primary School. There were about 20 students there. And they did a fantastic job. I think we got about 500 trees in the ground that morning. So it's really fantastic the way the community's getting behind it and lots of organisations involved.
We've had some feedback in the area where there's been a lot of traffic works undertaken downstream of the Northern Corridor, particularly around St Albans and Innes Ward, of stray road cones. We've brought that back and discussed that with council staff a number of times, and just wanted to note here the advice that we've had back, that we're taking back to our community as well through our own channels and through giving feedback to people that are getting in touch, of the preferred response to that from council, which is through Snap Send Solve, so that council can direct the relevant contractors to tidy up cones and address those issues. I do note that 2016-2017 I think was the last time I'm aware of there was a real push on that from council in terms of the council's communication channels. That was around the wind-up of skirt works, and I think CTOC was involved in that as well with a citywide sort of road code roundup. It seems to particularly have been highlighted as an issue focused on the St Albans area, and we're just taking that back to our community now and encouraging them to use those channels that the council provides.
That's us. Any questions?
Pauline.
Like to highlight one part in the report, please, and it's on page 110, 3.4.2, and it's about two buildings that council owns. in Westminster Street. These buildings were purchased some years ago now, and they are due for demolition, the purpose being to open up the park because there's no really good entranceway into the park. They're very run down, they're boarded up, they are actually a real eyesore, and they're currently not planned for demolition until 2025-26. And I brought this up at the board. Have you got any update on, have you had a response to
We
our
haven't had a
request to bring that
response.
forward?
We've sent a letter to the office of the CE, but haven't had a response yet.
Yeah, the concern there is vandalism or damage, with rubbish risks, all those kind of things that can happen
And
with,
fire.
with buildings.
There's a big
Yes.
concern down there, yes, because there are houses around it as well. So I think we need to be a responsible owner here and deal with these. So we look forward to having a response.
What may be possible for the Office of the Sea to respond before the next meeting of the Community Board, which would be helpful for you could discuss it there.
That would be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? No. It's done. It's done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next is Waihoro Spraden Cashmere Community Board, Carolyn Potter, and I don't know if Lee's with you today. No. Carolyn.
Lee is absent. He and his partner had a baby 4 or 5 weeks ago that's been in and out of hospital with breathing difficulty. So it all will be well, we are sure, but I'm sure Lee wouldn't mind your unsaid good wishes.
Yeah.
These are the decisions under delegation. I just want to mention basketball. Our board has had a heck of a lot of requests ranging from an over 80-year-old to a team of kids, sorry, I didn't mean to say that, team of young people from Cashmere High about increasing the number of basketball facilities in our area. This is the most popular sport now. I'm pretty sure it's the most popular growing sport in New Zealand, and perhaps next to netball in terms of numbers. And the young people definitely want access to basketball courts in an increasing way. So we're really interested in the land next door to the Beckenham Service Centre. This has been the constant preoccupation of our board over 20 or 30 years, the land next door to the service centre, and we are hoping that we might finally be able to find a use for it that will support the ambitions of young people in terms of basketball, access to basketball courts in our area. This is the Innovating Streets project that Waka Kotahi initiated. They provide a small amount of money, which was increased in terms of Beckenham, but not in terms of Selwyn Street, and to provide areas that have put forward some ideas with real changes in their area that are temporarily tried, and the council does the initial liaison and supervision of the idea. I think Innovating Streets has done well. It's not without its problems and difficulties in terms of relationships. The council takes on quite a lot of work to facilitate this, knowing that the actual initiative has come from Waka Kotahi and the community. So it's not easy. But we think that we have landed in a good area with lower speeds and initiatives across the board that will encourage people's use of the area and how they feel about the area. But I want to thank the council's positive attitude towards this, because it's not easy having the two agencies, one authorising the money but not really doing hands-on work to initiate it, to get it going. So I thank the staff for their efforts on this. It took a lot of time and effort to land it without too much drama. And we look forward to the consequences for the young people who are very aware of both projects, and we look forward to hearing what happens to it. Community plan priorities. These are our bread and butter important projects that don't have much glamour attached to them, but are vital in the area. The Hoonhay Road, Worsleys Road intersection is a dangerous one, and we're very glad to see it finally underway. The shops have had a problem in terms of access, but the staff have very kindly are putting up some signs to indicate access to the shops, which will help those shops keep going during the project. And the guardrails on Dyers Pass Road, everybody knows that Dyers Pass Road is often a disaster waiting to happen, and there is increased work going on there to facilitate safety and access for people. We had a breakfast meeting with school principals, and thank you, Papanui, for your ideas putting. Sorry, but thank you for the idea of putting the school principals with the MPs, because that's a great idea. We immediately started to think about that, doing that as well, because the breakfast meeting with school principals probably tells us more about the area than any other single meeting does, about what's happening in the community at the real ground level. And some of it makes your hair stand on end. And it was so wonderful it's wonderful to have them and to be able to talk with them. And we're going to show a small video.
Let's give it a go.
Thank you, Christchurch City Council, for all the work you've done on the Opawaho River.
And our ponds at Beckenham.
Even after all the rain, the river didn't flood.
This kept our community safe and kept our school open.
Thank you, CCC. Thank you, CCC. Thank you, CCC.
Now, doesn't that look like a jack-up? And it wasn't. I know. This was not a jack-up. The principal came to this principal's meeting. She asked if she could put it up online. I asked if I could bring it to council. And this was after the board had asked me to write the letter that I did to council, which was unanimously, and to congratulate the council for all the work they did on the floodplains, because that area was the one that lost 35 houses. The council had to buy 35 sites, 35 houses. You can see the blank spaces when you go around the loop. You can see where the houses used to be. Those are the people that were flooded repeatedly over their floorboards. And the flood mitigation work worked. If you walked around Beckenham, if you walked where I walk up on the tracks, if you went round the river and had a look around there where I'm dog walking, that it worked. I've never seen Beckenham, etc., where I used to live, and all the suburbs around, including the small suburbs of Sparks Road, because Sparks Road was lifted by the earthquake and the ground around it is lower. And I've never seen them come out of a deluge like that so well. It was just great. And I should have mentioned it at the pre-meeting as well. And we didn't even know that was coming. It wasn't a jack-up at all. They just did it all on their own. And we were really glad to see it.
I think we'll pass that on to the team.
Yeah. And
those,
and I'm not just talking about the engineers who have done a wonderful job. Over all the years, they've done a wonderful job. I'm not just talking about that. I'm also talking about all the ordinary City Council staff who would have been put on the ready as well for civil defence work, as they always do. And so I just thought it was a really great thing that we went through. Yeah. And normally it would be a drama, and it just wasn't. There's my dog bin. There's the dog bin that the contractors don't know exists anymore, because they thought it had gone, clearly, because it was still accumulating dog poo bags. The following few days it still was accumulating them. That happens to be my vastly obedient dog that left me stranded at Victoria Park for 3 hours, and half of which was in the dark because he wouldn't come. I ended up backing into a ditch with my car, being pulled out by AA all the time, being patronised because I was an old lady whose dog wouldn't come. Anyway, the Matariki celebration at the Beckenham Library. supported by Beckenham Primary School kids again, who did Waiata. And that was 3 hours by the River Network, the wonderful Opawaho Heskett River Network, a very successful, smart, onto it organisation who put on a Matariki celebration last Friday night for 3 hours, started off by Waiata from the Beckenham School and the Christchurch City Council Waiata group, who sang beautifully. And the transport impact of the new subdivisions is a big thing of discussion for our board. We spend a lot of time talking about it. It's almost probably 50% of every meeting is the traffic effect of the new subdivisions in Horswell and beyond and around. And with more to come, especially off Sparks Road with Meadowlands, it's going to be huge, and the impact in our area is the downflow of impact in our area is substantial. And we were very pleased in the long-term plan that 2 of our major projects that were going to be postponed for several years were brought forward. The Selwyn Street deserves some attention. They've been left to rot since the earthquake, and 10 years is too long. So we're really pleased that the master plan has been brought forward to 2023. And the new cycleway from Westmoreland to get our kids safely to school is considered by the locals to be extremely important. We have been told by the Ministry of Ed that they're not going to put in any more secondary schools in our area, and there are 2 schools are at capacity. So how it's going to work, we don't know, but certainly the kids have to get to school, and we're hoping they'll do it by cycleway. So thank you for that. And that's it.
Do I have questions?
Oh, we had a presentation from St John. It was the same presentation that came to this area. We were shocked by the fact that they only had 11 ambulances. We were really glad to get the recommendation from Councillor Mel to have them to speak to us, because they had quite an impact on us. And we're handing out these. Jo will hand hers sideways. Our board has just produced a little Waiata booklet. It's very hard for community boards, if you can hand print. It's very hard for community boards to do anything to comply with the Treaty of Waitangi. It's hard to be able to liaise, and legitimately hard. Ngāi Tahu hasn't got the people and resources to constantly liaise with us. But we have produced a little cheated booklet that people can put in their wallets, and with Waiata and Karakia and so on. And we're hoping that this will be able to facilitate some greater understanding in our community at least. And we hope that when we have extra printing done, that there's no telling off from the staff.
That's fantastic. Thank you. We had a meeting of the Te Honona committee last night, and so I wish I'd known yesterday. I could have let them know. So thank you very much for that.
And it's under constant amendment, and we have had an indication from Ngāi Tahu who have approved this booklet, but we've had an indication that they'd like some changes. But having it reprinted and a little few changes is easy.
Yeah,
we're very glad to have their support.
Thank you, Aaron.
First of all, huge compliment on that. I think it's fantastic. And the little explanation at the front of which the karakia, mihi, waiata are, I think is a great concept as well. Just
pinched off Duncan Webb, I have to say. Yeah.
Oh, nothing wrong with stealing. Just the bin up there, is that one of the ones that's staying or going?
That is obviously, I think, going, because it hasn't been emptied, but the people are continuing to use it. It's on a tiny reserve that leads to Ngāpunawai.
Right. Okay. And have you had many complaints about the bins being
I've
taken out?
I've had a lot of complaints about the lack of bins, the fact that they didn't know they were being moved, and the lack of notice about what they're meant to do.
Right. So you've been a board member for a long time. Do you think we should have consulted publicly on those first?
This is so good. This is like questions in the house, isn't it? I think I do wish we'd consulted. I do wish we'd informed the community. I do wish we'd started a campaign associating picking up your dog poo with saving the water.
Right.
Because that's the contamination that's going to occur if we have dog poo lying around. I wish we had set up a goodwill campaign so that people weren't surprised and shocked by the disappearance of familiar bins and the appearance of the big bins, which I support.
That makes sense.
But sometimes in the wrong places.
Thank you.
I think that you've raised a good issue for us, and we'll take that on board, because I think the concept is the right one, and so now it's the dog. I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to say the
excrement.
Doggy do. Can I say that component? You know, both encouraging people to take plastic bags with them, and also to take things away with them as well when done. And lining that up with what's appropriate. So, but people can, approach the council. So community residents groups, community boards have specifically approached council staff over issues. So that the issue is open. The idea was to get people to kind of respond and then work out what was required. So. It's always difficult when you're confronted with partly a change of behaviour attitude. I think what surprised me was to find that 60% of our parks don't have rubbish bins already. That already there were 60% that don't. So looking at how we get those really high volume ones onto the big belly bins was core critical.
The problem is, as I've mentioned, and I won't carry it on, Leanne, because I do understand we're short of time, but the problem is, of course, is that we don't know how much dog poo is staying in those reserves, and B, the Rapaki Track residents have always told us that people carry a plastic bag with them and ostentatiously carry it out of the park and then dump it outside their doorstep.
Yeah, I mean, and look, there is going to be a requirement for people to take some, definite personal responsibility for behaviour.
And if we can associate that with saving our water.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation. And the next one is Te Pātaka o Rakai Hotu, Banks Peninsula, Tory Peden, and I don't know if we've got, no we haven't. Thank you, Tory.
Morning. Taran is an apology this morning. That's a lovely bunch of people up there. A lot of good things that have come out of our board over the last couple of months. So plenty of decisions last month with high community interest and board focus on Papakāinga zone plan change, the freedom camping bylaw review, terms of reference for the community reference group to support the Akara wastewater project. Also, we've had the speed limit review that has been well received, with altering speeds to align better with the rural roads. Decisions are made under delegations. The board has granted over 28,000 from our discretionary response fund over the last month, and have more applications waiting for the 21-22 funding round. We have 31 separate communities on the peninsula who are all motivated to undertake projects for improvement, and we're really grateful to have this funding available to them. We did extend the age range for our Youth Development Fund. It was 12 to 20. It's now been extended from age 10 to 20, and we hope that this will encourage more applications from our younger people. Big thanks and shout out go to our parks teams. We're very happy to see the huge improvements in appearance and maintenance of our parks and reserves on Banks Peninsula since having our wonderful dedicated team. And it's great to see that Kerry is back on board. The Takapaniki Reserve Landscape Master Plan is out for consultation and closing 21st of July. The reserve was a site of a massacre in 1830, and it's a fairly significant site, and became tapu but was misused over the ensuing years. It is great to see the importance of this reserve recognised and acted on in the development of 3 distinct parks, one for healing, one for reflection, and one for silence. In June 2017, Te Mata Hapuku, Birdling's Flat Community Centre was officially opened, a result of partnership between Council and the Little River Wairua Community Trust. The centre has been managed by the trust. Sorry, get that right. The centre has been managed by the Committee of Birdling's Flat Residents, which became an incorporated society in 2021. The usage of the centre has steadily increased. In June this year, the board officially approved the reassignment of the lease for the centre from Little River Wairua Community Trust to the Committee Te Whare Tapari o Te Matau Mata, Hapuku Society Incorporated. So that's the Birdling's Flat community have actually taken on the whole. And the last one is a lot of thanks do go to Council. The board would like to recognise and thank Council for retaining the provisions of customer service in Littleton and Akaroa communities in light of their remote geographical location and their wish to have face-to-face interaction with the Council. We invite you to watch this space as we work with the local community in developing the concept of community hubs in these buildings. And also thanks for providing funding in this year for the Little River Playground project and the Littleton toilets going ahead. The board recognises all the hard work that has gone into these projects to date and the importance of partnerships between community and council. And just on a last note, we do also recognise the flooding events recently, and I know our governance team are working quite closely with Community Trust to have a hui in the next month or two, just regarding flooding events that have happened and in Little River and how we move forward with those. I'll have even more updates when we get ready for the hui.
Very good. Any questions? Yanni?
The Takapaniki plan, did that go to your board for approval before it went out? Because I mean, it's such a significant site, and I guess I was sort of expecting maybe something would come to council before it went out, but we didn't see anything.
It has come to the community board several times, from what I understand, that we did see the concepts before it did go out to consultation. So that short answer is yes.
Because I've been on 2 hearing panels attached to it, and I don't know how others feel, but it does seem very disjointed process where it's not clear who's actually making decisions because of all the different streams of work. So will that report go back to your community board for final approval?
What I understand.
I'm not sure of who
Okay.
gets delegation.
I mean, given this has got actually national significance, it does seem a bit weird it wouldn't come in front of council. But I mean, I'm really happy that work's happening on it. It's been a long-standing issue. Can we get some advice from staff over the process
that's
around this?
fine. That's fine. We'll just make a note.
Yeah, and this was raised previously when we did get.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Thank you, Yanni.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. The next is Waitai Coastal Burwood Community Board, Kelly Barber.
Good morning, everybody. I'm joined again by Governance Extraordinaire Operative Chris Turner. Thank you, Chris. So we've had a busy period over the last month or so. I'll just take it as read. Decisions made under delegation. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of them. The first one, the Travis Road Cycleway. This is a situation where there's been a lot of back and forth between the council staff, the board, and some of the local businesses and residents over some cycleways that are going to be put in effectively Travis Road. It's a really good example of the back and forth that's required to get the right solution to please as many people as possible. It's been really good. And I just want to thank the staff who've been incredibly patient with the board and some of the businesses in coming to a solution that's going to work for everybody. The other one I'd like to point out is just that we approved the development of an artificial softball pitch. This is in Rafidi Domain. And that's one part of the shovel-ready projects that have been going on in our area for some time, and it's really good to see these things happening. We've had a lot of positive comments about it. So moving on to the next thing is so we've had an initiative from a couple of locals, Sue McKenna and Jack Radford, presented to the board recently about their desire to put in a po whenua, which, for those of you that don't know, is a carved wooden post to either mark territorial boundaries or places of significance. There's a great example on the west side of this building. So they've received a lot of support from City Council and from Avon, Heathcote Estuary Te Ihutai Trust and Tangata Whenua, and the board's also expressed our support for the project. And it's really always good to see these sorts of projects being driven by members of the local community and not necessarily always council. This is another interesting initiative, a safe house initiative being led by a chap called Grant Donnell, who's very active in his Parklands community. I think there was a couple of incidents where some children had felt bullied and had sort of nowhere to go, and he's been looked at a solution for this, which he wanted to put stickers on letterboxes of safe houses. And it's a concept that is as old as the Good Samaritan story from the Bible. You know, I mean, sometimes people need help, and finding a safe refuge is always good. So they're going through the process of understanding how that's going to work and who would qualify to be a safe house and how they would be vetted, etc. But I think it's a really good example of a local seeing something that needs to be done and then pursuing that to its end. So just a note of thanks here. The New Brighton Library, the lights were sort of the letters were falling apart, and anyway, they've been restored, replaced with LEDs, which are a bit more reliable. Of course, this weekend we'll be having some lights of a different kind with the Matariki Festival in New Brighton, which will be absolutely spectacular, and I'd like to invite you all down there to see it because I think it'll be absolutely fantastic. So moving right along. Community Service Awards. We sort of decided to shake things up a wee bit this year and take our board to the people who had actually qualified for awards and present them their certificates in their place of significance. Some chose to come to the board, and that was great. And it's humbling to see how many people put in so much time in their communities and dedicate themselves to some aspect of life in the community. We don't really have much more, but I do want to finish with a little video, which hopefully will work. So this was a short thing done by Good Morning Australia, who are very popular breakfast sort of TV in Australia, and they came to Christchurch and did a little highlight, but they just did an absolutely fantastic job of highlighting New Brighton, and so I'd love to play this for you.
Well, let me take you on a little journey to the New Brighton region of Christchurch, just 15 minutes away from here in the CBD. It is a perfect little seaside suburb. Take a look at these pictures. That is the longest pier in Australasia. So I enjoyed a nice walk along that yesterday afternoon. The views across the mountains is just spectacular. Christchurch is that place where you can literally ski on the mountains and surf in the one day. Once you're finished on that wonderful pier, then of course watch that surf break. It is awesome. And then it is all about the Hipuna Tai Moana hot pools, the hot pools by the sea. Isn't this awesome? This is a public space. It is a wonderful area to come and relax and completely unwind. A lot of the sporting teams use these pools as well to wind down and recover from all of their matches. I know the Crusaders have been spotted in there a couple of times. Yesterday, though, they capped the number of people that can come in, so it doesn't feel like there's too many people around you, but you just get to soak in those beautiful hot pools. And of course, look out across that surf break right in front of you. It has been voted the #1 hot pools here in New Zealand. If you're going to do it, that is the place to do it. And like I said, just 15 minutes from here in the CBD. Guys, yesterday I had the chance to catch up with the one and only Rick.
paid him for that, so yeah, we're getting good value there. So this weekend there will be the Matariki Festival, and I was talking to Merrin and at the pools about what they've planned for the weekend. She said that they're running a session from 5 till 8, which is oversubscribed. They're going to showing great initiative here. They're actually going to heat up some of the other pools that are a bit cooler, back up to like 38 degrees, and try and have as many people as they can in to see the fireworks from the pools. She told me some other fascinating statistics. They've got 1,400 members who are members of the pool. She said they were expecting like 5 or so a month. Last month they did 111. This month they've done 103. So the pools continue to be a great success. And I think with this sort of thing going out, when the doors to our country open a little more freely, we'll see a lot more tourists there. We probably should have made them a bit bigger. Anyway, the last thing I'd like to finish with is just to thank and recognise James for his service to our board and to our area. I think you've carried yourself with great dignity and you've been a great advocate for the board, and I'd just like to thank you for your service. We appreciate it.
We are going to honour James at the end of the meeting and reflect, as you have, you know, the extraordinary service that he's given over a relatively short space of time, but still valuable service to our community. Does anyone have any questions for Kelly? James? No, we're not moving. We've already moved. Yes, okay. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Right, the next is Waimairo, Fendleton, Waimairi, Harewood. And we have Deputy Chair David Cartwright today, and an apology from Bridget Williams.
Thank you very much. Yes, apology from Bridget, who's in Napier today. I'll take the report as read. Well, the delegations, our decisions made under delegation are there for all to read. Moving on, public forums and deputations. It's obviously it's a great part of, or a great duty of the community boards to be able to listen to the concerns of the public. I know that Caroline Potter is a great advocate in the inclusion of this within the agenda, or all agendas, and you can sort of see there the cross section of people that we have that come into our ward, which I consider it an honour to listen to that. Community projects. The Elmwood Bowling Club. This in compliments actually go to Katie McRae here for helping lead and consult with a number of our residents. She did a fantastic job in that regard. We always knew that this was going to be a bit of a contentious issue. What's happened here, for those that might not know, resource consent was given to build the project before it was actually made public to a number of the neighbours. The neighbours then hold the council at fault, where the fault doesn't lie at our door, which results in a number of heated phone calls and emails towards the team, which unfortunately is misdirected. We do believe that the bowling club intend to be a good tenant and a good neighbour, and some of the more historical issues that have been created around in that area will be resolved. And the bowling club, compliments must go to them for the considerable amount of work, effort and expense that they have gone into to mitigate noise and the potential for noise from the new building. Just a quick thank you also to the council from our board for the two projects, being the Island Stream and the shared path on Gardeners Road. You'll know that we obviously sat here in times gone past advocating for these issues, and thank you very much for giving the approval there. I'll actually hand over to Marianne around the Avonhead and Russley Safety Initiative. We've also got a handout for you if it hasn't been handed out already. This is a project which Marianne would like to update you on.
Yep, so I know Bridget has talked about it before, but this project came about when the board were doing their community engagement to develop their community board plan priorities. There was feedback from the Avonhead Russley community that they felt there'd been an increase in the number of house burglaries and car break-ins and just a general feeling of a lack of safety. So the staff pulled together a kind of steering project group made up of board members and Neighbourhood Support New Zealand Police, Christchurch North Community Patrols, and our local MP's office, Sarah Pallett. They've been meeting regularly to share information and data. The police are saying a lot of it might be perceived and a perceived increase because of social media. People are seeing things being people are reporting on social media rather than reporting with the police. So they've been looking at what they could do as a collaborative group. So this fold-out booklet that you've all been given a copy of, that is being delivered to just under 5,000 homes in the Avonhead Russley area. Inside of it, there'll also be a one-page community survey on safety, just to get residents' feedback. They can either do that online, there'll be a prepaid envelope if people want to send it back via mail, or there'll be spots around the Avonhead Russley area for people to drop them off at schools and churches. And just yesterday, the Avonhead Mall came on board and said that there'll be a spot for people to drop them off at as well. So once those surveys come back in, they'll be analysed. And then with neighbourhood support, we're going to be holding some community meetings and give residents an opportunity to come along and share their kind of experiences and develop some initiatives together that we can work on. And then we're going to move into the Bishopdale area and then the Strowan area, because residents from those areas have both expressed concerns as well. So this is a pilot, really.
Thank you, Marianne. Happy to answer any questions.
Oh, the Chief Executive has indicated that she'd like to ask you a question. Are you up for it?
Ask me in a minute.
I'm sure you are. It's in relation to the issue of the gap between actual crime and perception and fear of crime. And I think it's an excellent initiative, but it's really important that we distinguish those two things. Yes. And I say that having just had a meeting recently, thinking across the city and specifically looking at what the evidence is telling us. Yes. Because we know in particular perception is considerably higher and the crime levels in Christchurch are relatively low. So it's important in your work that that message gets across.
Yeah, point noted, and is our objective.
Sam?
Just a quick one. I just wonder, for the benefit of the council, could you just touch on the Island Stream and the shared footpath in terms of the next steps? Because they're obviously local board projects that we want to get delivered within 12 months. So.
Okay, so my understanding of the Gardeners Road, and Marianne will correct me if I'm wrong, is the section of road that currently has no footpath along it, and that we have been able to move some internal funding from one of the...
sorry, I mean, like, it's probably more a question for Marianne in terms of...
We're getting staff to come and brief the board on next steps and where to from here.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, it would be really useful when we get the board reports, if you can just keep this at top of mind, because they're two tangible outcomes for the community I think the council would be interested in.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Melanie.
And with the Elmwood Park Bowling Club, what were the residents' concerns? Because it's a single-storey building. I'm just interested to see what they were.
So historically, there had been a double-storied building with a number of late night activities resulting in noise complaints and maybe some litter in the mornings. So it was, in essence, those. What some of the designs are now is they've moved the collection of skips and rubbish bins inside. So the emptying, when you empty put a bottle in the recycling bin, the clanging noise. So that's now going to be housed internally. So some of those emptying of rubbish bins at night time internally won't be such an issue. Car parking was also an issue, but yeah, people coming and going.
Okay. Very good. Okay, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you for raising that, Sam, about keeping an eye on it, because they are two important projects. my colleague next to me, Jake, has agreed to come to the opening of the shared path and have a bike race. So we can keep that on our list of things to watch over the next year as Jake starts training.
Right. Look, thank you very much for your
Thank you. Have a
presentation
great day.
today. Thank you. The next is Waipuna, Hallswell, Hornby, Riccarton. Chair Mike Mora.
Kia ora, Leanne and councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. We've we'll just take you through the report. Do you want to start? Introduce Emma, and our interim community governance manager. Thanks very much for accompanying me today. And we also have an apology from Helen Broughton, who's dealing with earthquake-related matters. Right, so a lot of the stuff is you'll see there. But do you want to take us through the
Well, we've got two part A's.
Oh, we've got two part A's, but we'll be talking about that, the part A's, when those part A's come up. Is that okay with you?
No, you speak to them now.
The part A's?
Yes, thank you.
Well, the proposed speed limit review, of course, has got the support of the board, and we did ask for a bit of an extension into Owaka Road as well. So that's pretty straightforward. And the sale of 66 Quaifs Road, of course, has drawn a lot of passion and a lot of enthusiasm from our community and our community board for quite some time, as you're well aware of. So what we're really pleading with today is to gaze into the crystal ball like we have been doing, and just see, well, we can hang on to this. We're not really going to be out of pocket a lot, so we hang on to this piece of land, and everybody will be happy. So that's the plea that we're bringing to you today. Please consider retaining a third of that land for the future in that area. So the next is the Waikola Park. There's some work going on with Waikola Park, and we're consulting with the community on Waikola Park, and we've had a couple of workshops with young people. So that's something that the staff are really handling well, and taking the community on board with them. And the Hallswell Community Market is going well, and has been for a while. We've got the Justice of the Peace is now at our Rakau Riccarton Centre, and give gear, get gear at Hallswell Community Market is a real sensible thing to be doing. And we've also got a library fridge as well, haven't we? That's something that I think other board areas in Christchurch could look at, is having a library fridge to put, people can go and put their books in and take books out and keep the system going. So then we have other activities in the area. Yeah. So that's parking on Brigham Drive. I was just talking to Barry. It says here that staff have advised that the issue has been addressed by the installation of new parking ticks. Well, I spoke to residents in Brigham Drive last night, and there is no parking ticks in place. So I've just brought that up with Barry today. So he's gonna chase that up. Oakhampton Reserve, Royden Quarry appeal. Just a little bit disappointed there that we haven't had more input in supporting the Templeton Residents Association in their appeal on that, because we did make a lot of promises at the time that we would, because our community board was the council in it. But anyway, we're just still waiting and seeing where that appeal's going. So, and the development's underway, of course, in Kyle Park. So that's really exciting for our area. And then we go to the Yes, where's the, sorry,
Which one are you looking for, Mark?
where's the, in our report, the Alders,
It's on the, further up on the first area report going through. Keep going.
right, yes. Now we go to the Alders Village Earthworks. This has been an ongoing issue for quite a number of years, and it still hasn't been resolved. And I appreciate the report from the staff, but it's not actually solving the issue at all. In the report it says, well, originally, can I say originally, the outlet from the first part of the subdivision drained by an open drain into the water race, Paparoa Stream water race. The development took place and shifted the water race. So since the water race was shifted, it had nowhere to drain into, so it's just been sort of draining through the open thing. But now it's being filled in and stopped, and this report says that the people that are living in Lot 9 and beyond, and the original landowners in there, their stormwater from their roof has to go to ground. Well, that's over an unconfined ground aquifer, and I don't know where else in Christchurch you'd be allowing or recommending, staff would be recommending that in a new development you take your stormwater off your roofs and put it to ground. So that seems a bit bizarre, and it also so that the only stormwater in that area that will be from the roadsides that go into the stormwater basins, but the stormwater from the land is draining north to south. So the stormwater from the roof might go to ground, but the runoff on the land is going to go into the rear property. So I don't see how that sort of planning can possibly make sense in this day and age. And to allow that sort of thing to be going on and refusing to talk to the affected parties and to our community board, which we've resolved over and over again, to try and get people to sit down around a round table and discuss this matter is very, very frustrating. It's ruining the lives of these people. They've been suffering from this for well over 10 years. It's destroyed marriages. It's destroyed their lives. So please, 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 can we get some resolution on this? I'm pleading with you, please, can we get a resolve? Dawn, I did give you the magic wand, but
Can you please direct your comments through the chair?
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I'm pleading with everybody around this table to try and get staff to agree to meet with the affected parties and to resolve this issue, because it's getting worse day by day. Every day.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to hold you up here because this is not an item that is your presentation or endorsed by your community board. So I just would like you to come back to the issues that your community board asked you to present to the council.
Okay, so that's what we've asked yes, that's what we asked for, that information. We did get a response, but I'm just challenging, well, I'm not challenging, I'm asking people to put their thinking caps on and think where else and
move on to the other items that you have on your presentation, please.
You finished on the presentation that you have there.
We've done it all, sorry.
Right, are there any questions for Mike? Aaron and Jimmy.
Well, my question's actually to you, Madam Chair. On behalf of Mike, I do support us getting to a resolution around what's happened at Yoldhurst. It is, I can see you cringing, but it is unacceptable.
Excuse me, no, I'm not, this is not for this matter. So I would just ask councillors to stick to the items that the community board asked to be brought to the council.
But the community board chair has just raised it.
Offline, please.
I actually won't take it offline
I'm not
because
prepared to have this debate without a report from council staff in front of the council. We've heard a plea from the community board chair in his personal capacity rather than actually speaking on behalf of the community board. So the community board, this presentation is to do with the items that were agreed by the community board would be brought to the council. So we'll just leave it at that. I want to take the heat out of what has been a long-standing issue and just pull it off this agenda. It is not on this agenda.
But
I'm sorry, but I'm going to, well, we've come to the end of the 10-minute presentation.
So can
I'll
I
leave
actually
it at that.
ask for some legal advice on whether I'm allowed to ask the question on what he has
We have
raised?
come to
because
the
we
end.
received an email this morning from an affected party
We have
who was
come
not
to
allowed
the
to speak at this
end.
council.
I have not got any email from anyone in front of me. So we've had a presentation from a community board chair, and I'm just asking people to take the heat out of the situation. We will look at it in a different context, in a different environment, but I will have proper advice in front of me before I do so. So
Okay, well, can Mike and I meet with you in the morning tea break? Just the three of us?
I'm bringing this to an end. The 10 minutes is concluded, and I'd like to thank you very much for making your presentation on behalf of the community board, and I'm going to move on to the next community board chair. Thank you. And the next community board chair is Waikura Linwood Central Heathcote, and the chair is Alexandra Davids. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for having us here this morning. So I will speak to our presentation, and there's obviously been a lot going on over the last 2 months, so I will get as much in as possible. So the board have been working on a sustainability charter. We have analysed what work is already happening in the community and how we are working sustainably as a board and as a council. We have acknowledged how we can and will work to be more sustainable for future generations. We are looking at a launch date in early August, so we'll have more info coming for you all soon. The board have funded the Kaumātua Hui. This started after the earthquakes for older people in the east. We recognise there can be a lack of connection for many older people in our communities, and this event actually caters for over 200 people monthly. Our staff are working with Te Puna Oranga to deliver the hui. We have had public forums and deputations, obviously, but we just wanted to bring up the deputation from Kirsty Burgess, a local resident who addressed the board on the Kiwi Rail Bridge replacement landscaping and the Richardson Terrace footpath under the Kiwi Rail Bridge. This was causing a bit of strife for children and pedestrians, children going to school. So we were hoping to get some work happening on that. Now, the Kiwi Rail will be finished at the end of the month, which is fantastic, and the footpath is underway. We just want to say thank you to staff in the transport unit for making the work on the path happen in conjunction with Kiwi Rail. So great outcome there. We have now had our workshop around the Strengthening Communities funding round, and we would like to thank everyone that has taken the time to go through the process for funding. We recognise that it is really hard for community groups getting funding nowadays, with so many amazing groups working to make our communities better places. It has definitely made making our recommendations tough, but it has been amazing seeing the valuable mahi that you are all bringing to our board area. So thank you again to those groups. As Tori brought up earlier, the flooding situation, we just really wanted to say a massive thank you to staff around the work that was done over that time. It was a stressful time for a lot of people, not knowing how we would actually be affected by the floods, but we actually got off reasonably unscathed within our area, which has not been the case in the past. So acknowledging the flood mitigations that have happened prior to this event, we just want to say a massive thank you. A Bromley traffic update. So the board and staff held a community meeting on the 24th of May to enable locals to share their concerns with staff and the board around the many traffic concerns in the area. We just wanted to say a thank you to everyone that took time out of their day to attend. Staff are now working on putting together an implementation plan using current budgets. This will enable the community and board to advocate for capital budget in the upcoming annual plans and the next long-term plan. On to cemeteries. So the board held an open briefing with community members and park staff, and we came to some immediate issues, and some of those were resolved. The board will now advocate for the renewal of the cemeteries bylaw and guidelines as they are set for the year 2028 currently, and we feel that they are overdue for an update already. Want to say thanks so much to everyone that have been involved in this. We obviously had a few issues around it, but thank you to everybody for your involvement with it, and we look forward to moving forward with those. The Edwin Mouldy track, we're currently not able to use the track due to rockfall risk, and the board will advocate to the council in the next annual plan for a modified route, as this is a valuable community facility, and when rocks aren't falling on you, it is a safer and more sustainable means of active transport to the village. Most importantly, however, it is a potential tsunami escape route, so we think that it is important for some work to be done on this. We have obviously had a lot of events in the area, and with Matariki happening at this time, we have had the Bromwood Matariki, we've had Matariki Blast, we've had events in Mount Pleasant. We've also had our life events that we've updated you on leading up to this board report. So we held the events in conjunction with YCD, Youth Council and Voice, and we reached over 500 youth in our area with those events. We'd also like to say thank you to the other organisations that helped make them possible, including My FM and the Club Kings. Upcoming events in our area, we've got heaps and heaps, so unfortunately won't be able to tell you about all of them, but we've got Matariki at the Phillipstown Hub this Saturday. We've got the second of the East Side Neighbourhood Walks that is going to be held in the Inner City East on Sunday the 11th of July, so this Sunday from 10 till 12. We have Matariki in the Zone, that is in conjunction with Richmond Community Gardens, Avon Takaro Network, Avery House, and Avery House. That is on the 17th of July from 2:30 till 7:30. And then we also have in the Central City, the Matariki Night Market at the Arts Centre. That is on Friday and Saturday from 5 p.m. And to finish off, we would just like to say we have now got a date for the opening of our pool, and that will be on the 1st of October. So we are excited about that. That is all.
Thank you. Melanie.
In one of the reports it mentions about the Edmonds Band Rotunda, which a lot of people have been commenting about how good it looks. Do you have a rough idea of when it might be opening?
We are working with community on that, but do we have a rough time frame yet?
Not at this stage, no.
It's been coordinated with the Parks unit, so can't give you a date at this stage.
Can't
But
wait,
we'll let
though.
you know
It'll be
as
great.
soon as we do.
It's got to be a concert.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just saying.
Yeah.
It's my personal opinion. Anyone else? Look, thank you very much for your presentation. It's
Thank
much
you.
appreciated.
Thank you for having us. Have a lovely day.
Right, the next one is, oh, that's it. That's all of them. So it's 5 to 11. I think we'll do the Wigram area proposed speed limit review. Oh, sorry. I'll put the motion for the other one. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Oh, Yanni?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just want to acknowledge the work that's happening within the community board plans. I think the point that Councillor McDonald made was actually really good, is that for a number of these projects, the problem is there's no clear outcome or deadline dates for delivery. So some are progressing, some aren't, some are delayed, some are funded through different processes. I do think it's something we should consider. How do we get ongoing visibility to ensure that these things happen in a timely manner? For example, the Bromley traffic issue was raised in, going back to 2017, and it's still in the sort of planning phase. And there's a whole bunch of issues of having to come back in a year's time for more budget because we weren't able to put amendments to the long-term plan because they were ruled out of order. So I just think we need to think much more clearly about how we can actually enable the community boards to do the good work that they're doing with really clear support and outcomes for the things to actually be achieved, rather than simply having, like in the case of Bromley traffic, coming back every single year, putting requests in for funding or for raising the issue and just not seeing the tangible progress. I also was a little bit concerned about Edmund's band rotunda. Like it's basically in April we were told it was a month to 2 months away from opening. I am concerned that it's basically sitting there. My understanding from the Office of the Chief Executive, they did say that within the next few days they'd get an opening date. But I think for councillors who know how busy we are, we need to actually get time in the diary ahead of time. So hopefully we can open that facility and get a date put in place. But I just think it's testament to the work that a lot of our staff have done, and we've heard some praises of our staff. I particularly just wanted to acknowledge around Te Poi Toi, the Linwood Pool. I just wanted to acknowledge the staff and the workers on that project, which is ahead of time and on budget, which is really fantastic. And I know the community are really looking forward to that October 1st opening. So thank you to the staff involved in that.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And even though it's 10:57, I'm now going to, I think we'll do the Wigram area proposed speed limit review because it looks like a non-contentious issue. It moved by Anne, seconded by Jimmy Chen. Is there any discussion? I'll put them. Oh, brief comment.
Yeah. First, by this community board, you're animals to support this one. Second is this area, new subdivision area, particularly Wigram Sky. That's medium high density the population area, so the residents have particular concern. Those the particular pedestrian crossing safety issue, traffic safety issue. So this one actually is reflect to the community, to the people's the needs. So we fully support their request. Thank you.
Okay. Anne?
To acknowledge the huge amount of work that has been involved with this, and particularly to acknowledge Barry and the excellent reports that he brings to us. He answers questions calmly and calmly. So thank you, Barry, and thank you for the team. And it's been well consulted on. People are very pleased with what's happening here. So please support.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody that works with our community board needs extra money.
Look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the motion to go into public excluded. The reason for this, and there's only a relatively short item to attend to, And the reason for doing this is so that when we conclude the meeting, we can move on to farewell James as part of the meeting. So if I do that with PX, we'll empty the room and then people may go away and not come back. So I'm just going to move that we go into PX. I'll move the motion, seconded by Sam McDonald. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. So we are going to adjourn for morning tea as part of this, but I think we'll just deal with the PX item once the room's cleared, and we're going to have a break for morning tea. So we'll be back in the live stream probably, I would imagine, by past. Yeah. Past 11. deal with the Mayor's monthly report first, and because I'd like to get through some relatively quick items so that we can structure things around Dame Fran's availability. So we'll just go on to the Mayor's report, and I will introduce it for that reason. And you will remember that we had quite a good discussion about the content, but it actually ended up being a workshop on the submission on the Aotearoa New Zealand Infrastructure Strategy. And so I said that I would include it as an attachment, so it's been submitted as a supplementary item. It was submitted on time, so if anyone wants to touch on any of the issues in the debate that follows, then you're more than welcome to. The introduction of my report is slightly critical of the approach that was adopted around He Whenua Taurikura, New Zealand's hui on countering terrorism and violent extremism. I think that central government would have found a benefit in engaging with both mana whenua, the local Muslim community who were affected, and also the council. If they'd consulted with us around the content and the construct of this first hui, I think that there would have been considerable benefit to be gained from that approach. I've spoken to a number of the community members who felt that the approach wasn't as respectful of the advice and the support that they could have given as it might have been. So I'm putting that relatively politely. It was a real privilege, though, to be invited to join Ngāi Tuhurere, who hosted an engagement between Ngāi Tahu and the Crown. And it was because it was being held at Tuahiwi, the Te Marito, the Upoko, invited the three mayors and the chair of ECAN, so the three mayors that are part of the Greater Christchurch Partnership, to join him as a representation to central government of the strong collaborative relationship that we have developed. And I thought that was it was an incredibly powerful message, but I also felt very privileged to be there. I put one of my pictures of Te Rama Mai in the paper as well. We acknowledged some farewells in the paper as well. Neville Riley, he was appointed as Canterbury Civil Defence Regional Controller in August 2011, so he came in after the earthquakes. An extraordinary record of service. He's a highly decorated military leader and diplomat, and I know that I found his experience to be very valuable. And 11 years for Gerald Van Looy, who served as the city's honorary consul for the Netherlands, and he was honoured with a Knight in the Order of Orange Nassau in recognition of his service to the kingdom. So, I mean, it's just, again, it's just amazing the amount of people that contribute to our city in different ways. I've talked about the World Innovative Cities Cooperation Organisation as an initiative that is designed to connect cities around innovation. So we're very keen to be part of that. And I spent a bit of time on the Canterbury Heritage Awards. It was a great night. It was just really exciting. And I really loved the fact that Tūranga was seen to be the future heritage winner. So I like the idea that that in the future people will think of that as part of an important part of our heritage. So I'm not going to go through any of the other details. I just thought I'd reflect on that and open it up for questions. Jimmy Chen?
No question, comment.
No, I'll get it moved and seconded if that's the case. Yep. Oh, sorry. And there's another recommendation is that I want the council to note that Councillor Sam McDonald is appointed to the Multicultural Committee. So I have the power to do that apparently. So and it will come. Will it come back for a formal, or is it just a noting?
I think a noting at this stage, but
if we do need a report, then we'll bring one. But we just thought it would be useful to note that for today. Sorry. So Sarah's moved it. Jimmy seconded it. Yeah. Okay.
Just a little question on the innovative cities.
Yep.
How does a city get invited to that? Is that a difficult thing to get an invite to? I mean, is that reflecting on the level of innovation that we're seeing in our city, that we've been chosen and invited to be on board? Or
yeah, and I also think we already have an existing relationship with Shenzhen, so we've signed an MOU with them, so we've been on their radar, and I have been invited to speak at a number of conferences, which I've done by Zoom now.
Right.
So it does make it easier not to have to leave the country. So we've been on their radar, and they've been aware that we are interested in innovation, networking, project work and research, and that there's a good alignment between us and Shenzhen. But there are other cities that are involved as well.
Thank you.
Jimmy.
One question, because you particularly emphasize, would like to, after the Whinawa Tarikura New Zealand way on countering terrorism and violent extreme, because all those kind of table session is very constructive, very kind of inclusive. I think that's very fantastic. But you suggest whether our council in citywide consider this one and would like to, to talk to the three committee first and bring this proposal to council. But I suggest that's a very good idea. But because this time the central government invited all those agencies, local government, particularly invited Naitahu, and some other agents. But my feeling is kind of multi-ethnic group, just few people attend those one. We should be consider all of them, because based on multicultural advice group, they particularly concerned, rather than focus on one group, should be all inclusive. Particularly, we mentioned social cohesion. This is my recommendation.
Yeah, no, look, and actually, you've highlighted for something that I did meant to mention, and that is that one of the underlying questions was, what can communities, civil society and government, which is both public sector agencies and local government, do together to intervene early, prevent radicalisation and build strong communities that are resilient to extremism? This is why I think central government would have benefited from talking to local government about content, but that's by the by. I want us to hold our own series of conversations here in the city based on these themes, and I would like to invite the government to hold the next hui here in Christchurch again, and actually potentially address some of those underlying issues, which I don't think you can have a conversation with unless we're talking to our local community. So I'd really like us to do that. I've raised it with Te Pai Pikari Youth Standing Committee, and they are very keen, and I think they've just taken off, and I'd like to raise it with the Multicultural Committee and also with Te Hononga. So if we get this right, then it's a potential opportunity. So I'll just tell you what my thinking is that when Raf Manji and I went and visited the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, they had just released their report into exactly these issues around countering terrorism and violent extremism, exactly the same set of issues. But what they based their report on, their starting point, was an in-depth series of conversations. And it was a listening project. So it was actually about central government and local government coming together, the agencies coming together and listening to the hard to reach communities to find out what was going on for them. And I think that that's a very good model for us to follow. I'll come back with a more in-depth proposal, but I do want to flag it with the 3 committees and then build from there, because it's not a formal, you know, here's a paper, come and make a submission. It's actually going out and meeting with the different communities that have lived experience of some of the challenges that perhaps lead to radicalisation, and that's a serious issue. Yep, Sam.
Oh, thanks, Leon. I just wondered, would you be able to touch on the APEC Live with Business forum that you talked about in there?
Yes, so I went up to Auckland and attended the launch of the APEC Live with Business. So the ABAC, which is the business part of APEC, so that's Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, which I'm assuming everyone knows from when I'm using the acronym, but the ABAC is the business arm of that. And they have been involved in sort of the separate stream. So we haven't hosted APEC since, I think it was 1999. No, yeah, 90. No. It was 1989. Was it? No, Jenny Shipley was the Prime Minister. So it must have been 1999. Yeah. Yeah, it must have been earlier in the year. And so so this was the first time, that the full APEC was held completely virtually. And it's going on now, you know, like, so this was just the launch of the business one. And I went up there really to ensure that that Christchurch was sort of seen as having an interest in all of the issues, including hosting an entirely virtual forum, because it all sits within that innovation framework. And I had the opportunity to provide a virtual welcome, so that was videoed, not on that particular occasion, but as part of the infrastructure ministers and officials who would have come to Christchurch for their APEC session. So I did a presentation for it, and if you want to see it, I will circulate it to you. But I just made the point about out of disaster, out of crisis comes opportunity. And I use the example of the Otakaro Avon River corridor having been devastated by the earthquake and now offering this amazing opportunity, as well as so I what I was signaling to them was that, you know, yes, there's been the crisis of COVID, but you as ministers and officials advising ministers should take this as an opportunity to think differently about how we do things. Anyway, thank you for the question. Right, so that's been moved and seconded. And so is there any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you.
If you want to do the LTP minutes now,
And
we've spoken to Councillor Hanson and they are correct.
okay, the council staff advised me that the LTP minutes have been confirmed, and Councillor Johansson confirmed them before he left. So if I could move those, and seconded by Jimmy Chen, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. So what are the items? Sorry, I seem to have moved these.
Do you want to do the audit? Audit then?
Sorry, I'll just, I'll do these minutes. So the audit and risk minutes. Sam, would you like to move those? Seconded by Andrew. Is there any comments you'd like to make?
Not on the minutes, no.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. The Multicultural Committee minutes. Jimmy, would you like to move those and speak to them?
Comments, yes. Okay, yeah. I believe our mayor and the fellow councillors all read this one. So I just want to highlight, particularly our meeting is 4 times a committee meeting. Actually, it's very rich in the content. Particularly, we have mandated a group. Like on 30th of April, we have the Christchurch Multicultural Council, and also we have the Immigration New Zealand to share with us all those how to engage, visit those Waitangi to build up this multicultural council or strategy. Actually, it's the treaty-based one. That's very crucial, important. But immigration, the New Zealand manager share with us due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So now actually the border has been closed. All those number of refugees is dropped a lot, but they still engage with wider agency and also those relevant group, how to provide good quality of service for all those new refugees. But most important is we listen to the multicultural advisory group, because we are all aware. Based on our multicultural strategy, we established this group. We would like to more listen to them, can provide all those evidence-based the advice to us. But now still in the transition the period. But this time they invited all those Christchurch NZ to share with us all those tertiary education, skill, training, and also employment relations. But one the key issue we need to face, because Pacific Island Maori, their tertiary education number and the percentage is low, and also Pakeha is high. Asian is more high, but the employment one, most Pakeha and the Maori Pacific, there's the same ratio. But Asian one, all those one, their employment, even graduate from uni, is dropped a lot. So we need to request Christchurch NZ to get more kind of data collection, to further study what's the reason have this inconsistent ratio. The other one is we review all those 44, the Royal Commission employment recommendation, particular focus on 2 categories. One is a safety issue. The other one is regarding social cohesion issue. But because there's 44 items, so at the end of the April, we review one by one for all those ones. They have some recommendation. And also our committee will review all those further, not only from advice group, but from the inform, from some other group. Then we will present it to the council. A moment preliminary will be in September. Just want to share the mayor and my fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. The Health, Safety and Wellbeing Committee minutes. I know James hasn't joined us, but perhaps Phil, you could introduce as the deputy chair. You could move them and speak to them and speak to.
Duncan has been a good addition to the group. It's working real well.
Excellent. So you've moved it. Do I have a seconder, Sam? Any debate?
Sorry, just the only thing, I know that minutes, but just probably one thing I know you were going to mention, Phil, but probably forgot about, was around just there's been an update from, so the health and safety manager met with the chief executive recently, and it was about ensuring she understood fully her responsibilities, because obviously as an elected council, we're exempt from a lot of that, and unfortunately Dawn goes to jail on our behalf. And so that's, it's been quite useful, I think, just to upskill Dawn in that respect as well. And Duncan's played a large part in that.
Yeah, I don't know, James, you've joined us now, so we just got to the minutes, and I allow the minutes to be used for chairs to be able to sort of speak briefly if there are issues that you want to draw to the council's attention. So your colleagues have done that for you, I think, but was there anything you wanted to add?
Is this for the Health and Safety Committee?
Yes.
Well, I think the only thing I would have mentioned was around Dawn learning that she was on the hook from a liability perspective that Sam, I think, alluded to.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dawn. But I think it's all covered.
People and 17 members.
Okay.
Would you like me to comment on what we're doing from an officer perspective?
Well, it might be useful.
I think it
to,
might.
Yeah.
So from an ELT and chief exec's perspective, because you're absolutely right, I'm the person who ends up in jail. I'm dependent upon 3,000 employees, 16 members and a mayor to do all the right things, as well as myself.
And the rest of the elected members.
Yes, that's what I said, 16 members
No,
and the mayor.
there's
I'm of
community
course on the
boards as
community
well.
boards as well. But importantly, and it is critical, we are overhauling the committee structure in terms of health and safety and well-being, because people shorthand to health and safety, and making sure that we've got that really working effectively and thoroughly, and we've got the throughput flows. But the other part is ensuring that where, in particular, we're moving far more and learning about near misses as well as things that are happening as well. Because organisation, if we understand the near misses that we have, that will help us actually be a better organisation in assisting with our staff and therefore for our members.
Yep. All right, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And could I quickly go to item 13, Audit New Zealand Audit Plan for 2020, and invite Sam to move that one and potentially speak to that one.
I mean, happy to take it as read. Literally just covers the main issues, but it was thoroughly assessed by the Audit and Risk Committee, along with the independents on there and our chief executive. So
great, good. So, Andrew, you happy to second? Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Right. So now we move to the sale of part 66 Quaifs Road, and item number 11 on the agenda. And I think we have staff to present. So we have a recommendation from the community board, which is different from the staff recommendation. So I'm very keen for the staff recommendation to be worked through. So can I hand it over to you guys to make a quick overarching comment, and then I'll open it up for questions.
So this has been a process where we bought some land. We needed to buy a whole property to meet our needs, and only half of it was used for those specific stormwater needs. And this is the surplus land that we bought that we're trying to now dispose. It's been through a long process with the board, explored through 2 workshops and several reports to get to this point. We, from an officer's point of view, after looking at all of the forward plans, all of the policies, all of the needs, the current provision, would say, hey, we don't need to retain any of this. The board has taken a different view. It'll be up to councillors to consider those matters today, and we're happy to answer questions.
So why did you buy more than you needed?
Because to buy it, the vendor would only sell the whole property.
So, sorry. So
the vendor would only sell the whole property. That's common with a lot of our purchases.
Right.
The vendor will want us to get out completely of the property, and we have to buy it, and then we work to dispose of the excess land.
And tell me what the policy is now, because we've changed that policy, so we wouldn't be considering this as I understand it under the new policy. So can you just walk us through the policy carefully so that everyone understands what the policy would be now?
Yep. So you've delegated the decision to sell the surplus land acquired for a project to staff. What we would still do in those cases is still work through those 5 criteria that you've given us to see whether we need to hold land. And we follow those, and those include, is there an identified use? Are there alternative uses? So we go through those processes, but now staff can make that decision to sell and then return the purchase price back into the project from which it came.
Okay, now obviously you've talked to Kāinga Ora. What is their view of the community board's recommendation?
So an earlier recommendation from the board was that they would like to see some potential for affordable housing on the site. So we circulated it to a couple of affordable and social housing providers. There was certainly interest. We've spoken to Kāinga Ora. They're interested in the whole site. And as was mentioned earlier, and as I mentioned to the board when we presented this, they'd be happy with 2/3 of it as well. They would be looking at it for building a community on it, so it would be a mixture of affordable and social housing. They are not proceeding very much on this at the moment until council makes their decision whether or not to dispose. They're not getting too excited because of that.
And you've identified in here that there would be an obligation to include a neighbourhood park in the context of a subdivision of this nature, and that this land represents 3 times that amount of land, as I read the paper.
So the amount that is in the district plan and the southwest area plan is that they're looking for around 3,000 square metres of parkland in that general vicinity, and that would come through on subdivision and through development contributions. Retaining it for that purpose is a bit of a double-edged sword because it hasn't been designed yet. We don't know where the best place would be, how it would work with the community. It's better to get that given back at a later stage where it's in the right place for the community and for the developments that will occur around it as well.
Right. Sam?
Oh yeah, just one question, and probably to signal I'm happy to move the staff recommendation at the appropriate time. It was just around the loss of revenue from this. So how's that? What I couldn't see was, I guess, the opportunity cost of not selling the whole lot. Yep. Could you just talk us through that?
So the estimated value is just over 3 million for sale.
Well, for the sale of the surplus is around 3
million. So if we retained 1/3 of that, there would be about 1.08 million that we wouldn't realise, accepting that we've still got to do negotiations on price.
So, and probably the only other thing would be just around the ongoing costs associated with that block of land. So we do pay rates to ourselves, and we'd obviously have to maintain it. So can we quantify what that would be?
We haven't necessarily quantified it for this exercise, but we would have those holding costs associated with maintenance and rates. Okay. Absolutely.
And just the only other one,
and
if it's
any
okay,
development costs as well, if we were then to develop at a later stage.
And probably just the other one is, do we know the quantum, and it may be too early to tell, around the development contributions that the city may benefit from the sale of this entire piece of surplus land?
Don't think we've specifically estimated that. No,
we don't know yet. Okay, cool. Thank you.
So Sam's indicated that he'd like to move the staff recommendation.
Yeah, not the community board, the staff one.
Yeah, the staff recommendation. Yes. Is there a seconder for that? Tim Scandrick. Okay, well, we've got a motion on the floor, so I'll continue with questions though. I've got Jimmy and then Mike and
2 questions. First one, you mentioned that it's the new subdivision area hasn't been designed yet. But my concern is if we sort out this piece of land, but in the future we thought, that's high density residential area, we need a piece of land to can develop playground or reserve or park, etc. In that time, how come we can, to meet the community or meet the people's needs?
Yeah. So you can certainly consider it. The board's aware that from one of the workshops, there's 77 parks within a 2K radius of the site. There's a lot of sports ones, and therefore sports parks. There is 30 hectares of sports park planned for development in the Templeton area to help serve the southwest area. So there's a lot of land there already. Over 15% of Horswell is in open space. So there's a lot of land in Horswell already. But we're still through that development for that increased density. Our plans allow for developers to contribute land and or money to develop new parks in local areas. And that would still occur because if as per the staff recommendation, Kaingaroa get it, they pay DCs and they can contribute to it. So there's certainly those mechanisms that allow for us to get those local parks if needed, but there is a lot of parks in the vicinity there.
Okay. Second question is regarding to you mentioned it's not meet the criteria of the policy. I mean, this one is mitigatable or not? Mitigate can be the mitigate.
To mitigate, sorry, to
because
mitigate.
the moment inconsistent with the policy you mentioned.
Yeah. So the criteria that we, well, your criteria that you gave us was to look at it not just now, and not just for the use that a piece of land is at the moment, but what it could be. But it also then tries to, the criteria you've given us, try to balance that with good, prudent financial management. So if there's not a identified use that can be reasonably achieved within a period, we then say, well, we don't need that land. Another test you might consider is, if we didn't own this, would we buy it? And I suspect you'll find the answer in this case would be no, we wouldn't buy it.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Thank you. Just looking at where the land is, future development could potentially include a pedestrian access out to Horswell Junction Road?
No, I think there's private properties that abut it, so there couldn't be access out there without acquiring more rights, property rights.
So they could be acquired, but it's not there at the moment.
No.
But I guess there's potential though to create an access point.
Well, theoretically, but it would probably require purchasing another property that's fronting Horswell Junction Road.
And we probably don't know this. Do you know what the reduction, I guess, would be in the number of social and affordable housing if actually we retained a third of the land?
Kaingaroa hasn't done full master planning of it, so there's not a definitive number. We've talked broadly around 30 to 40 in discussions I've had, so you'd reduce that by 10 to 15 houses.
The zoning requires 15 lots a hectare, so broadly 15 based on that.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron?
Yeah, two questions. One is around your recommendation to not set that land aside for the park space, because as you say, it'll be picked up in the planning for the master plan for the area. Our parks master plan for the whole city would have been considered in your report, correct?
Yes.
Which identifies where parks are needed now and in the future.
That's the open space strategy, yes. Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty clear. And then the other one is...
And the advice we're giving, well, it's coming through my voice, is from our parks planners and their advice.
Okay, and the other one with selling to Kaingaroa is, what does that subdivision look like? Do we have a model of what they're currently building? Because we've got some pockets in the city where we have high density of social housing and we have issues around that. So are we creating another one of those if we do that?
I don't believe so. Kaingaroa has a mandate they have a mandate to build communities, and it's not just provide social housing. They've taken over some of the functions of the old Kiwi Build unit, and they're looking at affordable houses as well. So certainly from my discussions, it would be a mix of tenures, both public housing and affordable housing in there. I don't believe that you'd see a pocket of major deprivation from these. And certainly my understanding that their current model is to work with communities to try and avoid that. And I think from what I've heard from Councillor Galloway, she's had discussions with them and they are keen to do that joint working together to develop communities.
So then what's their ratio?
don't know, and they haven't, as I said before, they haven't done the master planning for the site yet. They're not spending time and effort on this until there's a clear decision from council that we're going to dispose of.
It will have a underlying zoning though, which is so many households.
15 lots of hectares that
15.
underlying,
Yeah.
It's not that in most modern subdivisions, like even the developers will only allow so many houses to be sold as rentals because of the behaviours that go with properties. So they, there's papers on it through universities, all sorts of stuff. How you get
So
good
you're
social
asking
outcome through development.
the ratio
Yeah.
is between
Rental versus
social,
ownership. Yeah.
social and affordable.
Yeah.
One thing I can say is from the discussions, it's been 2, 3 plus bedrooms. And I suspect you'll find that there's less social problems with those larger ones than 1 or 2 bedroom ones. That's certainly our experience.
Anne?
I'd just like to foreshadow, if I may, that if the staff recommendation doesn't pass, then I will be supporting the community.
I assumed that you would be.
Right,
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
thank you. Can I, and I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question. Bruce, is there any opportunity, given the kind of partnership stuff that we've been doing a lot of, and the conversation is, through the LTP was a lot about partnership with community, is there an opportunity for a piece of land like this to be kind of in community, sort of to work with council and community together to maintain and to use it and to that sort of thing, rather than it all on to council in terms of maintenance and use?
It's an approach that you're starting to see, and you've got a good example down the road at the Old Horswell Library. We're actually working on something which we'll bring to you shortly around community asset transfer model that sets some guidelines and policy direction for doing exactly that, increasing the work of partnership. So absolutely there is that opportunity if you chose to do that for this. And I think you'll see that as a model that we can apply more broadly in other areas as well.
I've got, sorry, I had Jake and Phil and Pauline.
So just looking at the open spaces available in Horswell, what percentage do you know roughly are drains, essentially?
Exactly. So 69% of council's properties in Horswell are parks. 25% come into that land drainage, but they're multi-use. I know that I've heard some say that they're not able to be used for recreation. When I see the dog walkers and walkers around them, I'm sure that they're doing something other than recreation. And then the remainder is a mixture of housing, facilities, and other Three Waters land.
And in the time we've owned that land, forgive me, how long have we owned it for? And do you have an idea of what the land value has gone up by in the time we've owned it?
I think we've owned it for about a year and a half. We bought it for about 50 a square metre. It's probably worth, I wouldn't like to speculate too much because it's potentially commercially sensitive going forwards, but it has increased in value.
So retaining a third of it would obviously carry the same positive benefit.
Even if we never sell it.
No, I'm just pointing out a fact.
So, sorry, who was next? Phil? Was it Phil?
Yeah, just a real quick one. When you bought the land for your stormwater retention basin, you would have factored in that you not needed to, but really wanted to sell the surplus to help fund your development of your pond.
My understanding...
well, it was technically unbudgeted.
Yeah.
The budget only allocated the amount for the land for the pond and construction of the pond. We were forced to buy more. In fact, we bought 2 properties, both we bought more of. We had approval and we've sold off the adjacent, the next door property. So this is really closing out the process.
But you always had in your mind the day
definitely, it was surplus. We knew it wasn't required for the project. The original land purchase was for a stormwater project. So the intent was always to sell, well, from staff's perspective.
Pauline.
Thank you. So if the purchaser would be required to retain 3,000 square metres for reserve in any development, correct?
Would certainly to contribute towards achieving that. Because it could be that with there's 2 sites on it next to it, one on each side. They're still going through subdivision, I believe. Yeah. So the actual location of the 3,000 metres can be anywhere within those 4 to 3 lots of properties.
So
but they need to contribute to that.
So my question is that if that was retained as reserve, and in the future someone wanted to build a community centre on that, would that be an obstacle? Would it have to go through the Reserves Act and get changed, or is there any way that that could be? To me, that's one question.
Yeah. So one, I don't believe, will depend on the status that the land is comes to us in terms of the Reserves Act. But I'd be looking more closely at things like your community facilities plan, which, as far as I can tell, and John might be able to confirm, is there's not that need for a facility in that area.
No, that's okay. That's another issue.
But also, if you did want to have a community facility and that need came through, it might be better placed next to the activity centre at Longhurst, where we have additional land that's not being used, where you've got good public transport links, you've got the access between the community centre and the medical centre and the pharmacy. You create more of a community there.
Yeah. So my question still stands that if this 3,000 square metres would be retained and any development be required to retain that, it could be feasible to put a centre on that in the future. And
it could be, yes.
Do you know off your head how the size of the St Albans Community Centre land is?
No,
it's
not
nowhere near 3,000, is it?
Not off the top of my head, no, sorry.
What I'm saying is that 3,000 square metres is a big chunk of...
Yeah.
That's identified in the ODP as a neighbourhood park, and you either have a DC contribution, or when it's developed, the planners here will dictate or assist in where that park goes, and under the DC policy they could vest 3,000 square metres of land to fulfil that requirement. So the intent would be, under normal processes, sell the whole block, then the developer submits a subdivision plan, we work through the planning process and we say that's a good place for the park, and then they vest it back in council as part of the subdivision.
So is there any way that that if that vesting process did happen, then that could be classified as a zoning in such a way that something could be built on it?
Well, in theory, you could change the classification in future if there's an identified need, if the network plan identified that. Yeah.
All right, so I'll open it up for debate, but I wouldn't mind. Do you want to close it off, or? Yeah. So I don't normally speak against a recommendation that's come from a community board, especially one that's obviously been so deeply considered. But we changed the policy for a reason. We changed the policy to stop this from happening. When we buy land and we have to buy more than we need for particular purposes, we have to put that money back, the excess, back into the funding of the project. So this was designed before this came up before the policy was changed. But if this had occurred right at the very outset of that new policy, we wouldn't be having this debate. All of the conversations with the community board would have taken place, but in the context of working out what the best outcome is. And the best outcome for this is the mix of affordable and community housing. And I just think that in terms of all of the issues that are confronting our city at the moment, I think this is a really bad step to hold on to a piece of land that we don't necessarily need, and which can be catered for in the context of the development of the site. We know that Kāinga Ora wishes to work with us on it. and so it's a good result. This is actually a win-win for the community at the same time as addressing broader needs. This wouldn't be here if the new policy had been in place, and for good reason, I think. And look, I understand why community board members who are councillors are going to have to, be true to the view that they've already expressed. But when we sit around this table, we sit here with the best interests of the city at heart. And I would just ask that we think carefully about how this property came into our hands. We had to buy more in order to get the land that we needed. We should dispose of the balance. Tim.
Yeah, like just two quick things. Firstly, you always got to remember why the land was bought. It's really clear why it was bought. It was bought for a process and a project, and selling the excess of it will soften the blow to our budgets. And we've just been through a long-term plan, which is, close to 5% of increase. So how are we going to try and manage our budgets if we're going to do this kind of thing off a whim is ridiculous. Second of all, town planning. When you're going to get into like Hallsville with a huge development, it is absolutely crucial to have really good planning of infrastructure with regards to recreation. And our staff, it's right through the report from the staff, and it's been reiterated here, there are plans and visions for Hallsville, and this is totally against any kind of good planning whatsoever. So I think it's, thank you to the staff for the information that's been given, and I'll be supporting, as I said, I've seconded Sam's supporting this.
Anne.
So this is an opportunity. Yes, we don't need this land now, but Hallsville is going to grow to 45,000 by 2030, and we are going to need it then. So here is an opportunity for us to safeguard some space that will be used for sports fields. At the moment, we have sports fields that are oversubscribed and in demand. So we are going to need this land going forward. Templeton is a long way away. We're about sustainability. We're about caring for the environment. We don't want people to have to get in cars and go into Templeton. We want them to be able to play sport in their local area. That's only one reason. Hallsville has a long history of residents fighting for land. We had our residents association fighting for Hallsville Quarry to be retained as a recreational reserve for the people of Christchurch. And now look at it, it's an amazing treasure and jewel in the crown of Christchurch. We've also had a residents association fighting for extra land to be given for Hallsville Domain. So this is a community who has been able to have some future vision. It's also a community who live daily with the pressures of a place where population is exploding and there is pressure on resource. So we have an opportunity now to think about the future, to be able to put land aside. We've heard that we can work with community to maintain this, to look after it. It doesn't have to come back on council. And we have opportunities to work with Kāinga Ora to develop a community, not just build homes, but develop a community. And we have alongside it, for those families, a future place to play their football, to play their rugby, and to have that space put aside for future use. So I really ask that you consider that this is an opportunity. Yes, it was never meant to be kept. It was always going to be sold. But here we have this opportunity to hang on to this piece of land for our future generations. So I would ask you to really consider carefully the community board's recommendations.
Jake and then Jimmy.
I think I've left my microphone on, which is convenient. It means it saved me a button press. I really concur with the eloquent comments of my colleague, much more so than my own. I think I've been swayed really by. It's not often we hear a community say, "Hey, look, we welcome development and we welcome particularly social housing development," and all they've said back to us is, "Look, we just want it with a little bit of safeguarding. We just want it with to protect green space in an area that is experiencing explosive growth." And I think that if one day we could deliver
a fantastic community asset right next to social housing. That would actually be the best outcome for the city.
Jimmy? Oh, sorry, Mike. I apologise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the best outcome, should be not subject to the point of view. We should more listen to the resident, listen to the community. We sold this piece of land. We comply with the policy. Then we can, to make the outcome is social housing, affordable housing, and finance the benefit. However, we reserve all the 1/3 of piece of land. Probably all the least best outcome is more wide range, not only the social housing, because still the 2/3 piece of land can build up social affordable housing and also finance. We still have the income feedback, but at least those green space, those park reserve, there is the community particular concern. If not like that, why the Houseware community, particularly in a community meeting, they have make this deputation for 2 times, and the individual also make this deputation. And today, their community board, and also the community board member Andre have a petition for 340 signature. There's a best outcome. It's their view. As a elect member, as council, we should consider their concern. If they have no less concern, they totally will be agree with the staff office recommendation. They have this concern because the Houseware area, southwest area, they showed of this green space designated for the park, for the reserve, for the kind of the green even the community facility, etc. So this is my particular concern. We always mention, we would like to build up the resilient community, resilient city. But the conditions, whether we are humble, to careful, to listen to their voices. This is my view.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Look, well, Jimmy's right. We should be listening to our residents, but also we should also be listening to the facts that are presented to us by staff. And it's quite clear that actually in this area there's actually no issue with the supply of green space moving forward. And also where this development is going, it's actually going to be very close to the Hallsville Community Centre, library and pool. Council should not be land banking residential land in a housing crisis, especially when that development will create affordable and community housing.
Sam, do you want to close off the debate?
Oh,
sorry, James. My apologies.
No, it's all right. It's trickier on Zoom. Look, a lot of it's been said, but I just wanted to highlight that DCs pay for local infrastructure, so that potential population influx of development that will require local infrastructure has a mechanism which exists to deal with that. So the causer pays for the required infrastructure and the amenity when that time arises. What we don't need is the Christchurch ratepayer to pick up the tab to land bank something that we simply have no use for. If you support land banking it, even though there is a mechanism to cater to the population increase in the future, then I certainly don't ever want to hear anyone that supports that complain about someone that's land banked something in the central city for a time that may or may not arise. We've changed the policy so we don't do this foolish stuff in future. And I do want to raise one other point, and that is councillors and community board members take different oaths. I don't begrudge the community board for coming up with the recommendation that they did, because they don't have to take the lens that city councillors do to look out for all of Christchurch. Hey, what's the harm in someone else picking up the tab to land bank something for a time in the future? But as a city councillor, our responsibility is to look out for all of Christchurch ratepayers. Our staff have said that there is not a need for this, there is not a use for this today, and there are 77 parks within a 2-kilometre radius of this site. So not 7, not 17, 77. Not selling this surplus property is absolute madness, and I certainly hope that the staff recommendation is supported, and I'll be voting in favour of selling surplus property.
Thank you. Sam, would you like to wind up?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll only be brief. I've actually really enjoyed the debate, and it kind of brings out, I guess, in essence, why we're all here, because we have different views on an issue. But I do sympathise with you, Anne, in the respect that you've had to, stand up for your community, and I commend you for that. Look, I think, it's unfortunate that I think in some respects, I agree entirely with what Leanne said, in that this actually almost isn't a council decision in a way, because we've already rectified the problem that sat there. We have a whole team that deal with this stuff on a daily basis. And this isn't an asset sale. This is disposal of land that was bought for a particular purpose that is no longer required. And so when you look at what the team have said, where it may cost $1 million, we may miss out on $1 million from its sale. I'm hoping it's a lot more than that, to be frank, in the current market. But you look at the additional costs that come with that, whether it's the ongoing maintenance or actually the rates we get or the development contributions, like James has said. This is an absolute no-brainer to move. It's not an asset sale. And I think, as Mike touched on quite well, we do have a housing crisis across the country, and it would be incredibly disappointing if I think it's the Minister of Housing's electorate, we were to make a decision like this that again would incite more housing that wasn't built for people that need it. So I would hope that everyone around this table doesn't block vote on ideology, on an asset sale. It's not asset sales. This is a disposal of land that is no longer required. And I hope that common sense and financial prudence would win the day. So I'll certainly be supporting, and I hope others do, the staff recommendation, which obviously I've moved and Tim seconded.
Thank you. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those
Aye.
opposed say no. Hard to tell. So I think we'll have a division. Thank you.
Sorry,
I'm
I'll
sure
just-
the division sheet has been prepared.
Can I just have my abstention recorded since I wasn't here for the full item?
Yes.
Thank you.
The Mayor,
Yes.
Councillor Turner,
No.
Councillor Chen,
No.
Councillor Chu, Councillor Coker, Councillor Cotter, Councillor Daniels,
Yes.
Councillor Davidson, Councillor Galloway, Councillor Goff,
Yes.
Councillor Kewen,
Yes, but against too.
Councillor McDonald,
Yes.
Councillor Major,
Yes.
Councillor McClellan,
No.
Councillor Scandrett,
Yes.
Councillor Templeton, The vote is 9 votes for, 6 votes against, and 2 abstentions.
Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much. And thank you to staff for all of the work that you've put on. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Events and Festivals Sponsorship Fund.
Hello.
Hi. Do you want to make a quick
intro? Yep.
Yep.
So we're here today to ask that you receive the information, the Events and Festival Sponsorship Fund evaluation. It is attachment A in the report. We do have some paper copies. If you'd like to indicate if you'd like a paper copy, we can have one handed out to you. We seek approval for staff recommendations for the allocation of the fund as detailed in attachment B, the Events and Festival Sponsorship Fund budget. I'd just like to point out, because it wasn't necessarily clear in the report, that we are considering multi-year requests this year. So that's for the current financial year, 21-22, also 22-23 and 23-24. We seek approval for the establishment of an Events Discretionary Response Fund as per the eligibility criteria attached in attachment D to the report, the same as we had last year in the event of any COVID-related alert changes, forcing cancellation of events and non-use of a return of sponsorship funds, that we put that into a pool of money that we can allocate out throughout the year. We seek that delegation of requests of up to $15,000 for that fund sit with the head of recreation, sports and events in accordance with the eligibility criteria. I'd also like to note that due to timing of this decision-making process, 3 applications were withdrawn from this fund. We assessed them under the 2020-2021 Events and Festivals Discretionary Response Fund. They are outlined in this report also. And also to note, the application for the Santa's Mega Grotto has been transferred to the Discretionary Response Fund due to better alignment with funding criteria. It will be assessed, I think, on the 28th of July.
And there's an additional noting in here around the application for the Christchurch Vegan Expo. Was that? Yeah, if we can. There it is. There. So and that works as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that one.
And was that because they this particular fund has a minimum of $5,000?
That's yeah.
Right, but that's not affected by the minimum.
That's right.
Okay, good. Right. Are there any questions on this? Happy to move. Sarah Templeton, seconded Tim Scandrett. Yanni.
I know through the workshop and discussion that there's been some talk of how our staff can support the Polyfest event. So I was wondering if you could just give a little bit more detail about how we could work with that event going into North Hagley Park.
Yep, so because they'll be moving into council land, which was just confirmed today that they are shifting through to the Hagley Park event space, we have event partnerships advisors that will work directly with them. They will talk them through or work with them very closely through the entire process. And we will look for cost savings where we can to help them best use of space, and just with the general knowledge that we have of use of that space for events, we will work with them. We'll assist them with marketing as well through our summer What's On program.
Just to confirm, even if we give the 3-year tagged funding, if it's such a great success and it requires additional support, there's no reason why they can't come back next year and increase the amount that we've already granted.
That's correct. They can apply for a top-up.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Jimmy? Thank you.
I'm just concerned because if a similar event in the festival, we review some event. Because in here you mentioned Chinese New Year, the celebration, only unique event, but they are kind of biggest number of residents, people in Christchurch. But if compared to some other the funding, there's only 1/3. I'm not sure whether you have engaged with those groups. They are still, can provide those kind of event services or not. Particularly regarding to this one, Chinese Lunar New Year celebration, $5,000.
Let me have a look at that one.
Yeah.
There has been
It's a page
there's an introduction of a new festival, which is the Moon Festival, which has got all of the lanterns and all of the focus on the South Island Moon Festival, and it's been that's supported by Christchurch NZ. So this is the
New Year.
Traditional New Year, but it isn't the traditional New Year that we have invested in.
Yeah. So the funding that we recommended this year is in line with the funding that they received last year, which they were very happy with. And it's just due to limitations of the fund.
So they are happy.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate? I'll open it. I'm sorry, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. And look, thank you to the team. You've worked extraordinarily hard, and you've worked with councillors, and I think it's been a really good process. So thank you very much for that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Last item on the agenda: Hereford Street, Oxford Terrace to Cambridge Terrace. A confirmation of a earlier set of decisions that we've made. To formalise parking and stopping management on Hereford Street, Avon River Bridge. So over to you. Thank you, Stefan.
Yeah, thank you. So basically this report is just to formalise the parking and stopping restrictions that are currently on Hereford Street that was done as part of the construction works. So there's a bit of a history behind it in terms of with the original scheme that was going to be constructed by Otakaro. They were resolved. There was a bit of a delay to that scheme, so we then resolved what was currently there at the time, just so that it could be enforced. The project then got brought back into council and as part of the wider Hereford Street works, and so now we're just coming back to really formalise those changes to on the bridge.
All right. So, do I have someone to move it, or Mike and sorry, Jake? Well, Mike and Jake. I took Mike first, so and Jake seconded. Right. So, are there any questions of staff, Aaron?
Yeah, just on the annual maintenance, is it really only $30 a year to maintain all of that paint?
Yep, it's through our maintenance contract. They're the rates that are used.
So it's just used as you just do by block type thing.
It's right next to the building, so it's cheaper.
They do it with paintball guns out the window.
Yeah. Is that how it starts?
Not quite, but
almost.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know.
Yanni.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I appreciate that this is actually already in place. It's just that we can't enforce it. Just under 5.8. I mean, I'm just concerned. Like from some observation at night, it does get very congested with Ubers and cars and people crossing. So, do we have any plans to sort of monitor how it's working and address any sort of safety concerns? I see that you've put the taxi stand towards the Bridge of Remembrance area, but obviously with more bars going down to the north of Hereford Street and Cashel Street, I just wondered if you'd had any feedback or any concerns from what's observed, or if there's a process to look at what's actually happening.
Yeah, so we have had staff, since the changes put in place, we have had staff out there just having those conversations with the taxi drivers and through the Federation as well, effectively letting them know that these restrictions are going to be enforced coming up, so that they're aware of that. And we will be doing some nighttime enforcement. Obviously, we've done a bit that location in the past just because it is quite a busy area, and we usually do that in conjunction with the police, who are quite supportive of these changes. Yeah.
Right. It's just that there's no sort of drop-off area on that Hereford Street, which is the main east-west connector.
We have had good feedback that the taxi stands that have been put in place on Cashel Street are quite well received and well used. So they are used quite regularly as a drop-off area in the evenings.
And then as part of the other Hereford Street project, we the remaining part between Oxford Terrace and Colombo Street, there was a number of taxi stands and drop-off areas that were put in as part of that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And just, we talked to the Taxi Federation. Who do we contact for Uber?
There isn't really a contact. I'm not sure if we...
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wonder if we should get some feedback. I mean, obviously, yeah. There's a lot of double parking happening at night. Yeah, that's okay. People all right. Cool.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any debate? Sam?
I'm just going to abstain from it because I wasn't here to make the decision. Like, it was in the prior council term for me. And I don't agree with car parks being taken off the bridge. So I'd much rather abstain, noting that we have to do it, given it's just a formality, but I couldn't support it.
Okay, that's fine. Yep.
Ian, do you mind if I speak briefly?
Yeah, yep. Well, I forgot Aaron first and then you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So I will weirdly vote against this. It's just pointless. I may as well just abstain. But because, like Sam, I disagree with those car parks being taken off the bridge. They were some of our highest earners as far as occupancy goes. The interesting part of the photo, when you look at this, is, and the irony's not lost, is that we've put in these super wide footpaths, wider than most of those in New York, and there's no one on them, unless they've been photoshopped out. Have they been photoshopped out? Is that what you're saying?
Stop it.
Oh, okay.
Come on, stop. Stop interjecting
All
on
the
each
cars
other.
been taken out of the inner city. So I just, the irony's not lost on me that we have widened all these footpaths and created these pedestrian areas, and then when you get a photo on a nice clear day, there's no one there.
It's
but
overcast.
I realise that goes against some ideology at the table. What's that? Pauline?
Come on, please.
It's raining. It's clear rain.
No. I had James next, and then you.
Thanks. It was basically a pretty similar carbon copy to what Sam said, except I was part of the council when the decision was made, and I voted against it at the time. So just a matter of consistency. I know this is a formality, so I'm not going to vote against it, but I don't agree with it. I didn't agree with the decision, so I'll abstain on this item. Thanks.
Thank you. Mike.
I am going to have to respond to those comments. Can I say the word clueless? Councillor? Can I say clueless councillor?
No.
Okay, I won't say that if I can't say it.
Please. Oh, look, please.
If the Councillor
really
Kewen has a
well.
good look at the photo, he'll see actually it is the previous infrastructure there when the footpath was small. So that's probably why there wasn't a lot of people on there at that time. Now that it's wider, there's lots.
Yanni?
Thanks. There are actually cars in the photo. They're underneath where the footpath's been widened. But I don't support this because I'm concerned about the safety aspects of it. And from what I've seen late at night, there's definitely an issue. I think we'd be much better looking at actually temporary road closures for areas that have traffic going through if there's a lot of people at certain times of the night. Or actually, Hereford Street is the key east-west connector because we've got the big convention centre that shut Gloucester Street, and we've got City Mall up the other end, and a whole bunch of changes to the one-ways and two-ways up at Chewham and Litchfield and St Asaph. So in my view, like, this design is not safe, and I just can't see the sense in what we've done here. To me, it just doesn't make any sense at all. Yes, we should pedestrianise our central city and make it safer for people and for cyclists, but this design, in my view, just does not do that. I won't be supporting it. I didn't support it at the time, and I don't support it now.
Thank you. Sarah?
Just actually, Yanni's right. This is the key east-west connector within the CBD, and that's why it needs to be prioritised for actually moving people and not parking cars. There are 3 car parking buildings within 200 metres of this bridge, and they're well used. One is, in fact, only about 50 metres away. And so encouraging people into those car parking buildings is a really good idea, and prioritising the movement of people on footpaths, people on bikes and people in cars through the space, rather than encouraging them to stop and open car doors into people on bikes and all of those kind of things, is the best use of space here. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'll put the motion. And now we've got 2 abstentions, Sam and James. And so I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. So it's carried. So the noes are Phil Major, Aaron Kewen and Yanni Johansson. Thank you. Right, so that brings us to the end of the meeting, but it's sorry, my apologies. I'm now going to hand over to Dame Fran Wild, who's waiting patiently in the wings, and I'm really sorry, Fran, that you couldn't be here to join us, but we're looking forward to your presentation, and I'm sure you'll be able to take questions from councillors as well. Thank you. James,
I do apologise for not being there in person, but my plane was cancelled when I got to the airport. They must have known where I was going. I shouldn't say that. I was really looking forward to seeing you all. So because we're all so used to Zoom these days, we thought we'd give this a trial. I was asked to just provide for you in a formal context what the Remuneration Authority actually does and how local government remuneration is set, because there seems to be a lot of confusion about it. So we have the overheads. So Mia, can somebody Is somebody going to operate that?
Yes, they will. You just
Excellent.
tell us
There we
when to
are.
change the page.
I will do that. So we can move on to the next slide, please. So this is, first of all, I'm going to tell you about what we actually have to do. And overall, we take care of remuneration for all of local government elected members, not for employed staff, for the judiciary, for all members of parliament, including ministers, etc., and for quite a large group of independent statutory officers, and they would include people who have to have normally independent thinking and can make decisions maybe without going back to a minister. So in terms of local government, the rest of the slide talks about you. We are allowed to, in terms of determining your fix scales, ranges, different forms, rules for application, reimbursement of expenses, and differentiation between different people or equivalent positions. And sometimes I have to say finding equivalence is very difficult, but we do our best. So can we just flick over to the next one and just the first bullet point? Okay, so there are some mandatory criteria that we have under law, and we have to do this. And the first one is minimising the potential behaviour. So that might be saying, well, we're going to pay local government people huge amount of money for driving their cars to work, and so everybody thinks, oh, that's useful, I'll top up my budget by driving my car to work all the time. Or we're not going to pay people very much at all, and then nobody runs for anything. So, you know, we have to think about the implications of what we do in terms of people's behaviour. Okay, the next bullet point is to, if we can, achieve relativity with other levels of remuneration. That's pretty hard because the only other jobs like local government are really members of parliament. They are all very full-time. And so when we looked at this, we did a very significant review of local government a couple of years ago. We actually said we will put a stake in the ground at a cabinet minister's pay, and that will be the top, if you want, of the local government scale, which doesn't mean to say everybody in local government gets paid like a cabinet minister is. Okay, next. We also have to be fair to you all and to ratepayers, and these are specified in the law. So every time we do something, we have to say, is that going to put too much of a big an impost on ratepayers, or in the case of if it's MPs, on taxpayers? And is it also fair to the people who we're looking after there? Next one is a really important one, and this drove our part of our review 2 or 3 years ago. We felt that local government pay had slipped a bit in many areas, and we knew that in particular that whole kind of issue of having older retired people was still quite prevalent in some councils, and we wanted to make it possible for younger people to come in, and if possible more women, people with families, that sort of thing. And we understand that is still very difficult, and we will be keeping on looking at that in future years to make sure that people can actually go into local government if they wish to. And the last one is to take account of countervailing economic conditions, which nobody ever thought we'd be in, but we are now with COVID. Well, actually, we're not, interestingly enough. We've come out of it probably better than we all thought, but certainly a year ago, we had no idea what was going to happen to the economy, whether it was going to completely tank or not. So there was a bit of a hold put on everything then. Okay, so next slide. And by the way, I think you'll all have these slides. So this is what we do. Once a year, we do what's called a determination, and that sets, we decide the actual numbers for mayors, regional council chairs, and actually, I'm not sure whether the council should be in there. No, community boards. Auckland local boards, and that's it. And everybody else comes out of the pool. So we go on to the next one. I'll talk about the pool in a minute. I'll talk about it now, actually. We provide a pool for each council, and that is decided by what we have determined is the size of the work that the council does, the whole council. It's nothing to do with how many councillors there are. It is actually the size of your collective job. And we did rearrange, when we did our review a couple of years ago, quite a lot of the councillor remuneration to reflect that. So some people were held, some people, because they were overweight, some councils went up quite a lot. So one example was Far North District Council, which had been paid very poorly for the size of the job they do. So they've gone up quite a lot. Whereas other ones have been held. You've been held. I think Palmerston North was another one that's been held. So out of that remuneration pool, which is a fixed amount, it's, $100, you decide that, or any council decides that if they've got 10 councillors, they can either get $10 each, or somebody can get more than that if they're a chair of a committee, for example. So we do actually stipulate one thing with the pool, and that is a minimum amount for a councillor on each council. And that's really important. So you can't go below that. But apart from that, you can make recommendations to us about any of your positions and what they should be paid. I need to say here, this is not the council deciding its own pay, because you can only decide within the pool we give you. So we decide that pool, not you. And I'm always very open about that. And I say to all the councils, I will defend your pay. You don't have to defend your pay publicly. I will do that because it's us that set it. We also do the reinvestment allowances and hearing fees, and you know what that involves. Travel, kilometre allowances, ICT allowance, and more recently we've put in a childcare allowance. Okay, what's our next one? Yes, you can provide your mayor or chair with a car, a vehicle, and that's counted in their total remuneration, by the way. The other thing I think is important to say is that all elected members do have to be paid what we say. You can't change, a council can't decide that they actually don't want to pay somebody that much. You have to be paid what we say. And that keeps it completely out of your scope. Okay, next slide. So this is the pool which I just talked about, stupidly, ahead of time. So it is the size, not the number of councillors, as I said. Really important issue, that. And we've created an index for territorial authorities and another one for regional councils. And we based that, we did quite a lot of work on this with significant input from local government. We had a little panel we put together and had lots of discussion. In the end, these were the factors we used to look at size index, population, OPEX, assets, and we put in socioeconomic deprivation because we felt that councils with low socioeconomic populations probably have quite a lot more work to do. Although somebody did say that actually it's the higher ones that cause you the most trouble, but I can't comment on that. So as I said, this provides the total amount that must be paid and the minimum per councillor. Other than that, you can make any recommendations you want, and we generally will put your recommendation in that determination. So you do have to decide what is your base rem for a councillor with no additional responsibilities, and most councils make that a bit higher than the minimum amount, but not all of them, but most of them do. So roles with other responsibilities, deputy mayor, committee chairs, portfolios, there's a variety of different roles now, require you to write that out, have a vote on it, and include the proposed remuneration. So that's really important because then it's all clear, it's in the public, and it's transparent. you send your proposals to us and we consider your proposals for inclusion, and generally we include them. But we've got a get out of jail free, if you want, card on that one. If we think something's funny going on a council, we can go back to them and say, why did you decide this or that? And that would be pretty rare. Most of them are doing this reasonably well. So the other thing about the governance pool is that it must be fully allocated. You can't decide to pay yourselves less. And I think this is very important for ratepayers who think you get paid too much. You can blame the Remuneration Authority for that, because the law is you must pay what we allocate, and the whole pool needs to be allocated. And then just a reminder that this does not apply to the mayors or the regional council chairs or Auckland local board members or community board members who are paid differently. We decide their pay. So just lastly, going on to Christchurch, you are the second biggest, well, they're not even a TA council, they're a unitary council, you're a territorial authority. You are the biggest territorial authority in the country by a long way, and you've got the highest number of councillors outside of Auckland as well. So you're a big council in every sense of the word. And the remuneration that you get reflects your size relative to other countries around the whole, other councils around the whole country. And some of them are quite small, frankly. We have assessed your councillor positions as full-time roles. We went into that quite deeply too in our review, and we said some councils are full-time, some are approximately half, some are quite part-time. We actually know that in any council that's assessed that way, there will be people who don't work as hard as other people. We can't actually pay for performance. So if you have councillors that are not working as hard as others, then they have to be looked after by the election. That's what democracy is for. We can't help that. We don't do performance pay. Community board rem is a very difficult issue for us. We have looked into it a couple of times, and there's some papers on our website, and in fact, I think your council has got them too. You might want to read our report on community boards. It is a real mixed bag, so difficult that every community board practically in the country, and there are hundreds of them, is completely different. So many of them represent a lot of people, some of them represent only a few people, some of them cost their ratepayers a lot of money, some cost nothing much at all, some have many delegations, some have very few delegations. So we have always found community boards very different. We were going to construct a size index for community boards, but we have simply been unable to do that. In fact, we've said to the Local Government Commission, you need to make some decisions about community boards and what they do. For example, in Christchurch, we can see you're kind of edging towards the Auckland local board position, but you're not a unitary council, so you can't have local boards. But yours are bigger than most of the others around the country, but we've got no way of comparing your community boards with others because everyone is so different. A scale wouldn't work. The other thing that's worth adding is that your community boards did, I think, not all of them maybe, but there was some extra payment for increased workload from the earthquake sequence, and we've just left that in there. So we have just recently, today actually, that's not recent, it's like current, gazetted this year's determination. Here it is, I'm holding it up. Your council has it too, we sent it to you. And you're welcome to read it. And I think the bad news for you all is that you're not getting any pay increase this year. But your community boards, the big ones, are going to get 1% pay increase, and Banks Peninsula is getting 1.5%. So what we've done with the determination this year is we've tried to bring up the bottom end of local government a bit, and we've just left the top end where it is. We can't keep doing that forever, and I think next year we'll probably be back to a regular round. And I have to say, for my part, I think that local government is certainly not overpaid for what local government does, and we're very conscious of that. But in the COVID environment, we've just been a bit cautious. So that's the presentation. Mayor Dalzell, if you want questions, happy to answer any questions.
Well, look, thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive presentation, and I think it's probably helped explain things to the wider public because it's still being live streamed, and so that's going to be very useful to be able to refer back to this as well. Aaron.
Yeah, it's a question that one of my fellow councillors raised when he first became a councillor, which was Mike Davidson, so I'll give him the credit, because some people who consider running for council asked this as well, is around KiwiSaver. Has there been any consideration given to that in the whole process?
There has been a lot, and we would love to do that, but unfortunately we're unable to do that. We have actually suggested to Local Government New Zealand that this should be one of their big lobbying issues with the government, because we have to administer people's positions as they are determined by central government, and for tax purposes, local government are actually independent contractors. So KiwiSaver doesn't apply, which is terrible, because some of you are in there full time for some years, and you should be able to get KiwiSaver in our view, but we can't do that.
Yeah, Aaron.
Okay, thanks for that, Fran. And the other one is around the ACC charges for being a city councillor. Can you just let ACC know it's not a very dangerous job?
Same as being an independent contractor. I pay ACC. Actually, maybe mine is dangerous, because when I go and talk to council sometimes, I think, oops, but no, that's a joke. You probably pay the same as I do, which I consider to be inordinately high for my very safe role into physical safety, but that's how it is. We can't, again, determine that.
I have a slightly different view on ACC. I think that it covers more than work-related
that's true.
Injuries, so it's a good system.
That's true.
But anyway, Mike.
Thank you. Has there been any thought about the deputy chairs of community boards and the room they're on, which is the same as actual members when they're doing more work?
Well, the problem is, again, that some will do more work and some won't. And what we would like to have done was do a pool system so each community board could decide it. But honestly, as I said, it was just too hard working out the relativities between community boards. And in the end, we just gave up. It's been the only thing in this role that's actually defeated me, has been community boards. So yes, we thought about it, but I don't think we could assess from Wellington which deputy is doing so much more work, because some of them don't.
Is there any potential for the Remuneration Authority to feed into the future for local government review? Because I just wonder whether that's in terms of the context of some of the conversations they're going to be having about roles and functions, and that I can see that perhaps some broadening of community boards may become inevitable in terms of some of the future conversations.
Yes, there is potential. We actually, they want to talk with us, and we've got an appointment at some stage, and we've told them we will send them through all the information. Because what happens is that we have these weird kind of structures that evolve over the years, and the pointy end of it always ends up as remuneration. So we get the pointy end, but we can't change the structure. We can't do anything about it. Yeah. So we know what the issues are. And so we're pushing back now and saying to the people who can decide that kind of structure, remember, here are all the issues that we have actually come across. And we've got spreadsheets for Africa on this, honestly, on, comparisons, particularly between different community boards.
The Chief Executive has a question for you.
Good afternoon, Dame Fran. Right. It's a completely different subject, and that's in relation to the consideration of the responsibility that elected members have as shareholders of major companies, and recognising the Three Waters reform and the potential of future companies being created. At the moment, those considerations you take don't appear to take that into consideration, and it's done on OPEX and assets, yet there are real responsibilities that elected members have as shareholders of companies.
Yes, assets was meant to cover all the assets. We talked a lot about this when we were doing it. And look, honestly, any formula you have is going to be probably, I was going to say 80-20, but 60-40. You're never going to get a perfect formula because every council is different. And their ownership structures are different, but the assets are meant to take into account all of the assets the council has. We have been asked, by the way, what will happen when or if water leaves. And I've said, well, if that affects the calculation, REM might change, but that will be, we can't really forecast what will happen at this stage. It's too early for that, since nobody knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think 2024 is the sort of planned implementation date, so that's still some time away. Are there any other?
As they might say, a little bit of water to go under the bridge.
Oh, you've just stolen my line. Yeah, no, that's right. Are there any other questions for Dame Fran? No, look, thank you very much for making the presentation. I'm sorry you can't join us for lunch. But
Me too. I wanted to talk with you.
We're going to have it anyway because we're going to farewell one of our councillors. So we'll share lunch with him instead. But
hi, Fran.
But do let us know when you have an opportunity to come back. And I guess just to formalise the presentation, if I could formally thank you and move that we thank you for the presentation and on determining local government elected members' remuneration. And seconded by Mike. So
thank you.
I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And perhaps if we could thank Dame Fran for making the time available. Sorry about your flight.
I'm not there.
And we'll see you next time in person.
Yep. I'll try and make it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right. So the last item on the agenda is a presentation to one of our colleagues, I haven't prepared anything. I mean, I have something to present to you, and why don't you come up and stand here, because I'm going to get you to respond from here as well. So,
This might be tall.
Yes. Taller. Oh, I can take my boots off. So I want to. I'm going to make this presentation, and as I say, I haven't prepared any particular words because I kind of wanted it to flow naturally. But this is presented to Councillor James Daniels, Coastal Ward, October 2019 to July 2021, with our grateful thanks. So I will present that to you in 1 second. I just so when James announced that he was going to run for the Coastal Ward, I was intrigued because, of course, I've known James and members of his family for years. For a variety of different reasons, we've connected, and I was surprised that he was running for council. To be honest, because I hadn't really felt that he'd had an interest in local body politics. I knew that he was certainly up for the political environment since his long-term association with Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu. I was sure that you were more than capable of coming into that role. But his connection with the ward, the Coastal Ward, goes back to where he's from, you know, where he went to school. And so I did find one thing online that I thought that I'd share, because it was that magic moment when James and Ken ran for mayor.
Oh.
And I just thought, and because I didn't realise that this was the case. So so it was in 1989 when he and co-host Ken Ellis held the James and Ken for Mayor campaign. And this is a quote from James. "We bought in Mark II Daimler, added a female chauffeur, and named her Meryl Streep." He chuckles. "We would ring up the council on air and see how long it took them to answer the phone." And I'm sure you did do that.
And threatened to fire them if they didn't answer faster.
Well, exactly, because James and Ken found out afterwards that, in fact, although they could run a campaign, James and Ken for Mayor, only one of them was actually allowed to stand. But it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the council. I was devastated when you came and said that you were leaving. But my devastation at you leaving this table was compensated by knowing that you are taking on a role that is your dream role. And you and Simon Barnett together, I think, will be able to carry the voice of Christchurch and all of the knowledge and experience that you've gathered around this table and getting to know all of us and your constituents. I think that's going to stand us in good stead as you take on that role. So I'm going to miss you terribly around this table. I have valued you so much, and I hope that you know that you are always amongst friends here and that you are welcome back. So when you retire, and there is a vacancy, you know, you might just want to be thinking about where that might take you. But thank you for everything that you've done for us.
Thank you. Oh, well, kia ora tātou. Look, actually, Leanne has stolen a couple of my lines, but nevertheless, I've put a bit of thought into what I'm going to say today, because I put a lot of thought into the decision that I made to be stepping away. But what I'm about to say is neither profound nor poetic, but it could be provocative to some people. But I see it simply as a statement of where I'm at, where I'm going, and where we are at, and where we've been. So I start by thanking the coastal ward community that I grew up in, as Leanne said, and will grow old in, for selecting or electing me as the representative on council. Most people say it, but I mean it when I say it is an honour and a privilege to have this position. There's a responsibility in this role, and it's not just the representation or advocation aspect, it's the obligation to provide for what we as a city needs now, but more importantly, plan for the future. And I evoke the ngaitahu whakatauki, mō tātou ā, mō kauri a muri ake nei, which is for us and our children after us. That's what we've been thinking along those lines. So just on 2 years ago, I did make the decision to stand as a candidate and eventually became a councillor. I thought I knew what I was getting into, and I was, what's that word, Phil? I had some wacko ideas about what it was like to be a councillor, and I now have huge respect for those who have come before us, those who are here now, and best of luck to those who are coming to this chamber in the future. It's hard work, and for those who think that councillors are paid too much, let me tell them that the hourly rate, as we know, is very, very low, because like it or not, elected members are seen as public property, and it's assumed that you're available and accessible 24/7. I've dealt with phone calls at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, someone complaining about the neighbours and making a lot of noise at a party, Sunday afternoon emails and phone calls about the queues at Taiora QE2 pool, Monday morning moans about the rubbish bin that hadn't been picked up and so on. But the real hard work is done around this chamber when we discuss, debate and decide on matters such as cycleways, the living wage, our three waters, our diverse and dispersed communities, and recently how we're going to fund everything we do over the next 10 years. And I'm so happy that I was able to stay long enough to see through the long-term plan. But for anyone who wonders what we do and or criticise council, I invite them to put their names forward for the forthcoming by-election in the coastal ward or the local body elections in 15 months from now. Go on, I dare you. Where's the camera? I have a general warning though. My time here as a councillor has seen my hair get thinner, my waist get thicker, and the brain presumably getting bigger because there's so much to learn and or think about when you're a councillor. There's also a new language, which is technical and colloquial, terms or words I hadn't heard before, like close the circle, we'll take this offline, foreshadowed motion, and levels of service, Phil. Yes. Google it now. And many others. I've re-evaluated my values too, because I came in as a confirmed petrol head who's owned race cars, flash cars, mini cars, and I was anti-cycling, or more specifically, cycleways. One of the first things I learned is why we're putting in the major cycleway routes, and without getting into the detail here and now, I can say that while some of the over-engineering of some of the cycleways is an issue, more importantly, the strategy of getting more people on bikes is right. For health reasons alone, helping deal with the climate emergency that we have acknowledged as a council, as well as lowering our collective carbon footprint. And let's not forget, we have the most cyclable city in the world, which goes hand in hand with our risk of sea level rise. Many people will make comment or criticise council, and often they're talking about our staff. And I will say there's a culture within the organisation which is quite distinct. It's not bad necessarily, just different. Some of that's due to the structure of the business units inside council, but mainly because there is legislation that they or we are bound by, and we're charged with gathering and then distributing or spending public money, which means many long drawn-out processes must be adhered to which can frustrate both citizens and even some councillors. But the council staff do that, and they do it well, so ka pai koutou. And I'm just going to make a special mention of one of our staff, which is the woman that looks after us on a daily basis, looking after our diaries and mopping up after us, Madam Chung. Thank you very much for your support as well. Now, I turn to my colleagues around the chamber and thank you for your support, your collegiality, your support both overt and tacit. I won't embarrass myself, but more importantly, all of you, by making specific comments on each of you right here. I'll leave that for the aftermatch function. But I will mention a couple of people here right now. There's a foursome has been generated here. My next door neighbour at council, Councillor Pauline Cotter, has shepherded and supported me as Deputy on the Three Waters Infrastructure and Environment Committee, and been a great mate in the chamber. Thank you for that. Down the other end is Councillor Anne Galloway, who's got a huge heart, as we all know. She wears that on a sleeve.
Major next to you.
Yeah, I'm getting to him. She wears that on a sleeve when she advocates for the young, the older, and those who need more of a hand. And she's also led me and Pauline astray at times when we've had long lunch breaks between various meetings. But the real rascal in that foursome has been my mate, Phil Major. He's next door neighbour in terms of wards, and my philosophical friend when it comes to learning about council. We've been through a journey and doing things. Eho, I've really enjoyed our time together, and I look forward to you continuing to bring your special qualities to council. So kia kaha. Once again, to the other councillors, I will speak of you and to you at the after party. I also acknowledge our sole employee, our Chief Executive, Dawn Baxendale, who started in that role just before we were all elected, and she came halfway around the world taking a haircut in remuneration on the way, and initially met with foibles and follies, and is a genuine leader. She and the executive leadership team that she's curated provide great advice and support to councillors, and I'll say this, it's a new dawning. The last person I want to acknowledge publicly is Her Worship, the Mayor. Leanne has declared that and why she's not re-standing in next year's election, so I'm pleased to be the first to say thank you for your efforts. on behalf of Ōtautahi Christchurch, I'm staggered that you cop any, let alone lots of criticism, but that'll be because people don't see how hard you work. I'm on record as saying your work ethic is astonishing. You are diligent, you're intelligent, you're very articulate, a great communicator, and have a long and storied history of public service. Therefore, you bring tremendous experience to the role of mayor. So, there. I also thank you for your mentorship and support that you've provided to me over the last couple of years. But the reason I'm standing now is because I'm standing down. Yes, as Leanne said, I'm about to get back on the tools. My trade is talking, and I'm, as Leanne said, moving back to media full-time after being approached to join Simon Barnett on News Talk ZB afternoons nationwide. I've had more than 40 years in the broadcasting business, and I'd felt that I'd done my time and had put it all behind me prior to standing for this public service, so being offered the role was totally unexpected and extraordinary, so much so I couldn't turn it down. It's like an ex-All Black being recalled for the Rugby World Cup. So today I'm literally crossing the floor to bat for the other team, if you like, as I transition from being on council to being a commentator, occasional critic, or at least critiquing the governance and the operation, the business of running this city and also the country, actually. So many people have said to me, I'll bet you'd be glad to be leaving. It must be frustrating. And I always bite back hard. I say, no, local government is a fundamental foundation of a civilised society. Look around the world and see the clusters of messed up cities around the world, then look at us. We're good. It has been an honour to serve my city, my community, my constituents, and also initiate projects for the generations yet to see the beauty and bounty of Ōtautahi Christchurch. So it's normal to have a waiata, so you'll have to help me on this because you've got the little booklets there. And this is one that generally younger New Zealanders get together in, say, London, when they've had a few drinks and they sing this song. They don't realise that they're actually singing a song that's all about unity. So help me when we sing, Tu tira mai ngā iwi, o e tātou tātou te. Tu tira mai ngā iwi, tātou tātou e. Whai a te rā mangatanga, me te aroha e ngā iwi, ke oka tapatahi, ke oko tahira, tātou tātou e. Tātou tātou, a tihei mauri ora, hiau e hi. E noho. E noho koutou, e noho, as I finish our meeting with a karakia, and I'm just about to say that our talk is finished and we're about to head off somewhere else to an aftermatch as well later, don't forget. That's my shout at the door. And so I finished with the words where we say that i te reo Māori, which is ka whakairia te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia tūroki whakataha ai, haumi e hui e, taiki e. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and here's a present from all your colleagues as well.
Oh.
But we could take that upstairs.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Cheers.
I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.